This episode of the Majority Report is brought to you by Future Hindsight, a weekly podcast with a mission to inspire civic engagement and renew trust in our democratic process. The Future Hindsight team joins me in wishing all of you a very happy holiday season. If you haven't yet, listen to their recent season on their opportunities to rebuild America in the wake of COVID-19. Listen to Future Hindsight wherever you get your podcasts. Now for our show.
Rooms of any elite. Sam Seder. They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Wednesday, December 23rd, 2020. My name is Sam Seder. This is the five-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Heather Parton, or Digby, will join us. Writer at Salon.com and proprietor of the blog Hullabaloo. To round out the year, to look forward, and also to talk about Trump kneecapping McConnell, agrees with Bernie Sanders' proposal, calls for $2,000 checks. Meanwhile, Democrats pounce. They're going to call for unanimous consent on those checks. The real question is, will they hold a vote? U.S. tops 18 million cases as COVID care rationing spreads. Over 3,200 people died yesterday in this country from COVID. Meanwhile, Donald Trump pardons 15 people, 4 of whom were criminals. Joe Biden weighs using the Defense Production Act for vaccine production. Warren Sanders and 6 other Democratic senators push for investigation into Trump's execution spree. And a Dominion election system employee sues Newsmax, OWN, and the Trump campaign over the death threats they have received. Speaking of suing, the Department of Justice sues Walmart over its role in the opioid crisis. And lastly, Joe Biden selects Miguel Cardona, Education Commissioner of Connecticut, as his new Secretary of Education. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the show. Emma Vigeland is here with me today, of course, like every day. Hello, Emma.
Every day these days. How are you, Sam?
I am well. I'm getting used to that. I realized, oh, wait, Emma's here again. Oh, my gosh.
I
know. Now, Emma, we had talked about this show yesterday, and it was going to be a look back on the year because it's the final live program that we are doing this year. And look back on the year and then a look forward to next year.
Right.
The omnibus spending bill had passed. The COVID relief bill had passed in conjunction. They rolled it all together. That's what they do. We'll talk a little bit about why they would do something like that. And by all accounts, the president was going to sign this bill. And
spoiler alert.
2020 is not over yet, and neither is the Trump administration.
Man, just a gift for us. I know we're going to get into it a little bit, but Trump really handed the Democrats a golden opportunity here.
There is a golden opportunity, both politically and in terms of policy wise, for the country in in multiple ways. We're going to get into it. We're obviously going to talk about it with Digby. But first, let's start today, the sequencing of what happened yesterday. It started, and this is unrelated to what Trump did, but it is the story, the TikTok, as they call it, right? This is when the reporter goes in and gives like the sequencing of events is pretty stunning. Nobody seemed to know that Donald Trump was going to do this. There had been a report last week that, I think it was on Thursday of last week, Donald Trump's advisors had to talk him out of trying to scuttle the deal for a $2,000 check.
And we had assumed that because he's too lazy, because he's too preoccupied with trying to overturn the election results, that this was that, and he wasn't going to do anything except sign this bill. Right. And we will get back to that, because I'm not convinced that those two concepts are mutually exclusive. Well, neither am I.
But before Donald Trump blows up the relief package, Mike Pence is in Georgia rallying support for the Georgia runoffs, which are happening in now 11 days, 12 days, January 5th. And there's two things to note here. One is the Republicans in Georgia who are going to this rally with Mike Pence, and this is at a TPUSA conference. This is the Charlie Kirk organization, ostensibly to corrupt the minds of college students. And he is there ostensibly to get people to vote in the election, but they care about one thing and one thing only, and that is Donald Trump's election. And he moves past that. And really, this is one of those moments where it would be a gaffe if it wasn't for the fact that it really was just an expression of what their attitude is. Here is Mike Pence at that rally.
I don't think I have to tell you this. So for all we've done, for all we have yet to do, stay in the fight. Stay in the fight in our election. Stay in the fight in Georgia's election. And stay in the fight every day that follows.
Oh, that's not what I meant. Yep.
Stay in the fight, all the
stay
fight.
In the fight. To be a check on what the Democrats and the radical left want to do and what they want to undo. All that we've done. You know, our agenda...
That's not exactly stop the steal, is it?
Greatness. Their agenda is about American decline. Where we cut taxes, rolled back regulation, and advanced freedom, their agenda is higher taxes, open borders, socialized medicine, a Green New Deal, and abortion on demand.
Oh.
They want to make rich people poorer and poor people more comfortable.
Wait, what? Hold on.
That's it.
Hey, man.
There you go.
You stumbled on the truth. My amendment to your statement would be that progressives want to do that. Democrats want to tweak along those margins. But I love him just saying it. Yeah, like that is our agenda. Thank you for accurately describing it to Turning Points USA and the audience.
Horror.
I know.
Of in any way making American, or any people for that matter, more comfortable. Think of the horror. I mean, this is part and parcel of the conservative ideology that has been shared by every Republican who has held office, the vast majority. And I include Paul Ryan into this. I mean, there's multiple examples that we used to talk about all the time about, and frankly, this is why Donald Trump won their primary. Because the reason why, to Mike Pence, the idea of making folks living in poverty more comfortable is so reprehensible is it does not hold them to account for their poverty, because in their mind, their poverty, living in poverty, is a sign of some type of moral defect. some type of character defect, as opposed to, and frankly, we have millions of people apparently who have that defect. This has been the conservative line for decades now, that if you do not have money, you are in some way morally less righteous than those who do, which is why Donald Trump was able to walk on a stage. And regardless of the fact that he had no policy expertise whatsoever, regardless of the fact that he had no government service expertise whatsoever, regardless of the fact that his business was just a series of bankruptcies, and had he taken the $300 million that his dad bequeathed him and just put it in an index fund, he would be richer than he is today. Because he was the richest person on that stage, there was no arguing with him, because he wouldn't be, according to conservative ideology, that rich unless he was righteous, unless he was in the right, unless he knew. And so this is an extension of that same thing. And it is not in any way unique to Donald Trump. Mike Pence is a run-of-the-mill, a little bit more theocratic, I think, than most Republicans, but certainly not within this administration, a run-of-the-mill Koch brothers Republican, just like Paul Ryan was, just like John Boehner was in many respects. I mean, this is the ideology they espouse. This is not unique to Trump in any way whatsoever. I
mean, you're on point with this. It's a rarity, but no, I'm joking. Obviously, I agree with you. And the fact that Mike Pence is so theocratic and is so vocal about his religious beliefs, that's what makes this kind of penalization of poverty so extra egregious for me, because it should be the opposite. I mean, the teachings of religion are about compassion for the poor and not just making things even more uncomfortable for them. He should, in theory, based on his beliefs, be in favor of making people's lives more comfortable.
It's tough love.
Right.
It's tough love.
But instead, his beliefs, or his purported beliefs, have become so intertwined with his authoritarianism that it's now indistinguishable. And the authoritarianism is mixed in with this worship of wealth, and that's reflected in policy. So it's one thing to just have these beliefs and say them as like you're a drunk uncle at a bar or whatever, but the fact of the matter is that a party that currently controls the Senate and the outgoing president is a part of, they believe this, and they reflect it in policy that hurts and affects millions and millions of people on a yearly basis.
All right, and we're going to talk about this with Heather Parton, but let's play this clip of Donald Trump later in the day. This is after. Remember now, Mike Pence has talked about you don't want to make anyone living in poverty more comfortable. That would be a bad thing. Here's Donald Trump coming out and essentially blowing up or purporting to blow up, and essentially handing a gift. And we will talk more about this with Heather Parton. But there's two things to note about this. He gave a 4-minute speech. We're not going to play the whole thing. But he lists a litany of items in the speech that are part, in his mind, of the COVID bill that have nothing to do with COVID.
It's the omnibus package.
But he's listing like there's money that goes to NASA. There's money that goes to this country or that country. There's money that goes to the
poultry,
the poultry, or money that goes to the to the Library of Congress, and he lists all the money, which adds up to $3.8 billion, and doesn't quite get the math right on what the adding to $1,400 per person on top of the $600 that went out, that would be closer to $380 billion. So his math is a little bit off, but also on top of that, which is fine. I'm okay with him not having those math skills, because I think we should have $2,000 per person.
Right.
He also, like you say, does not realize that the COVID bill was tied to the omnibus budget bill, or I should say the budget bill, and the whole thing became an omnibus package. And those things are in the budget of the United States that
it doesn't even matter, because the whole point is that he wants to look like the populace, which is why he's coming out in favor of $2,000 checks. Completely it doesn't matter if he doesn't follow through with it. It delays the bill enough and undercuts McConnell ahead of the Georgia runoffs.
Well, we will talk more about that aspect with Heather, but here is that clip.
Than the Americans are given. Despite all of this wasteful spending and much more, the $900 billion package provides hardworking taxpayers with only $600 each in relief payments. And not enough money is given to small businesses, and in particular restaurants, whose owners have suffered so grievously. They were only given a deduction for others to use in business their restaurant for 2 years. This 2-year period must be withdrawn, which will allow the owners to obtain financing and get their restaurants back in condition. Congress can terminate it at a much later date, but 2 years is not acceptable. It's not enough. Congress found plenty of money for foreign countries, lobbyists, and special interests, while sending the bare minimum to the American people who need it. It wasn't their fault. It was China's fault, not their fault. I am asking Congress to amend this bill and increase the ridiculously low $600 to $2,000 or $4,000 for a couple. I'm also asking Congress to immediately get rid of the wasteful and unnecessary items from this legislation and to send me a suitable bill, or else the next administration will have to deliver a COVID relief package, and maybe that administration will be me, and we will get it done. Thank you very much.
It never gets old. I've watched that a bunch of times.
Maybe that administration will be me.
Just me.
I think
I am the Senate. I am the administration.
We're going to talk to Heather about this, because I'm not convinced that that those two concepts of the $2,000 and the next administration will be me are distinct. However, one thing you should also note as you take that in, and we will talk about it, the implications of this with Heather, because this is a huge gift to the Democrats, and to a large extent, they have already begun the process of accepting the gift. There's more that they have to do. But you'll note that the one thing he was talking about, too, was that business deduction. Mm-hmm. He didn't say who the deduction was for, but if you go into a restaurant, one of the things they put into the operating budget was a business deduction for lunches, for businesses that had been taken away in the past.
Free martini lunch deduction. It's called derisively, appropriately so.
And he thinks that 2 years is not going to be enough. He apparently expects to be eating a lot of lunches going forward that he's going to have to pay for, and would like to have those deducted.
Man. So again, worst case scenario, we're getting that other bill, but $2,000 checks, like that might be a possibility right now.
That might be a possibility, and there are huge both policy implications for Americans out there. $2,000 is obviously more than 3 times $600, but also in terms of the politics of this, Nancy Pelosi in particular has an incredible opportunity that to bring up a standalone bill and force over 150 Republicans to vote against Donald Trump in the House, and to force Mitch McConnell to vote against this or not bring up the bill and have him pay the price in Georgia. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking to Heather Parton about this. We are back. Joining us via Zoom is Heather Parton, or Digby, from the blog Hullabaloo and a writer at salon.com. Heather, how are you? Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. I'm doing great. How are you doing?
We're doing well. Now, Heather, we touched base yesterday about what we'd be talking about today, and we presumed it would be a look back on the year and a look forward, because much of the major, I guess, legislation of this year had been sort of finished, and Donald Trump stepped into the fray and blew everything up, and apparently surprised a lot of his own advisors.
Apparently, he's really mad at Mitch McConnell. I mean, he is so mad at Mitch McConnell, because that's, in my view, that's what this is really all about. I mean, I think, Trump could have been he has wanted to give a bunch of money away as part of, some kind of a relief / stimulus from the beginning, but he never bothered to participate in any way. I mean, he's been so obsessed with his own reelection and with this ridiculous post-election, dispute and all of that he didn't bother to really involve himself in that. And he could have, and had he pressed it, and all he had to do was unleash his MAGA cult, right? And to call up all of their senators and say, we demand this $2,000. We followed, Trump, do what he says. And he probably could have gotten them to do it. He just didn't bother. But I don't think he cares even now. I don't, he says that, but I don't think he cares. But the reason that he's so upset is because Mitch McConnell has told the senators, first of all, he acknowledged the Biden election, because he accepted reality. And he also told his senators not to participate in this little pageant they're planning for January 6th, where they want to object to the electoral, to the certification of the electoral college vote. And he wants the senators to object to it and vote against it. And, this is a ridiculous thing. I mean, it's not going to happen. But because he heard, and this was reported, that Mitch McConnell told his people, please don't vote for this, because it means, and this was the reasoning, it means that you'll have to vote against Donald Trump, because we're not going to actually do this. So that's putting our guys in a terrible position where there's going to be a vote against Donald Trump. It's going to hurt us in 2022. That was Mitch McConnell's convoluted rationale for not wanting to do this. And Trump is mad at him for that. And he went after John Thune, the deputy, the other majority leader, the deputy majority leader, whatever it is, who said, from South Dakota, who said, look, it's not going to happen. So why put everybody through this? And so Trump went after McConnell. On Monday night, he sent around a graph showing that somehow or another McConnell's re-election was due to Donald Trump's tweets and endorsements and some robocall that he did. And then last night, he put out, he sent out a tweet that said, McConnell blew it, and that John Thune is a rhino and he's going to primary him in 2022. And so he is mad. And what that did is, it's exactly as you say, it's a tremendous gift to Nancy Pelosi. And to Pelosi and Schumer's credit, instead of dilly-dallying as they usually do, or following the Amy Klobuchar, some of the other sort of centrist types I've noticed in in the punditocracy going on and on about how, well, we really can't, this is the process and we made a deal and blah, blah, blah. Pelosi and Schumer came out immediately, as did AOC and a bunch of others, and said, yeah, we're there. Good. We're following, follow the leader, do this thing. And I was actually kind of proud of them for taking yes for an answer.
Well, because it's really just a no-lose situation in this sense, right? Because either they call Trump's bluff and delay the stimulus, which helps in the Georgia runoffs, or they do this unanimous consent vote. It fails because obviously at least one Republican in both the Senate and the House is going to object to it. And then the part that I worry about is, will Pelosi take this up as a standalone bill after the unanimous consent fails, which I wouldn't put it past her. It seems like a no-brainer, but I wouldn't put it past her to just do this theater part and then not.
Well, that is the real question. And we should just, just to back up a little bit, because Schumer and Pelosi, you're right, just came out immediately. In fact, Schumer, I think, retweeted AOC's bill that she has with Rashida Tlaib. And I think they actually called for $2020 just a way to say goodbye to 2020. But nevertheless, Schumer was right on top of that. And there is no, I mean, the delay is, it seems to me there is no delay. I mean, it's a question of whether or not Donald Trump signs this bill. And he may not sign it. He may not sign it at this point, or he could just pocket veto it by just letting it expire, which is probably more likely. And like Emma says, there's, Pelosi came out and said, we're going to take this unanimous consent, which is very much, this is also how they did the CARES Act. This is where you can vote from a distance. And as long as there's no one who says no, and that's it. But there's obviously an expectation that somebody's going to say no. And then the real question becomes, does Nancy Pelosi have, I don't even know how to describe this, the inclination, I mean, I want to say bravery, but that seems to be too strong of a word for what you need, to call people back during the Christmas break and make them take a vote and make the Republicans vote against this bill, then send it to the Senate and make Mitch McConnell either not bring it up. I mean, this seems to be a genuine moment where Nancy Pelosi cannot escape, because there's a broader awareness. Like, I feel like 15 years ago, Heather, that they could have gotten away with the UC, with the unanimous consent. There was no Twitter. There was no social media. People wouldn't talk about it. They wouldn't know about it. But today, because people jumped on this very quickly, Adam Gentleson, who was a former chief of staff in Harry Reid's office, I believe it was, and David Dayen and others, there's an awareness now of this type of thing.
Absolutely. And there was, from the moment that it happened, there was a ton of analysis that was going out on Twitter, and I assume Facebook as well, and other social media, that was discussing the intricacies of this. And it's fairly complicated, the way that this could unfold in a number of ways that could be good or bad. A pocket veto, if it sits there too long, the Congress expires, you got to go back and redo the whole thing. You've got, there are a lot of things that could happen there. But you're absolutely right. This is a moment where, who cares if Donald Trump gets credit for this thing? He's gone. I mean, that's not going to change. Now, Trump may feel like somehow or another this will give him, what he needs politically to overturn the election, but it's not true. I mean, he can think that, but we all let him have credit for it. Fine. Okay, Trump, good. Bye. That was an excellent parting gift. We really appreciate it. The American people thank you for your service.
I would just add what Emma was implying, that he also may see this as being valuable. Who knows if he's going to run in 2024, but there is value to him to pretend that he is. And like, this is that scene from Little Italy in New York, where, the mob boss would go out and throw around $100 bills. Right. At Christmas. He gets to do that. It's definitely going to help him down the road, but not necessarily with Democratic voters. I mean, I don't think people are going to walk away from this, and because the Democrats jumped on it. But all right, so walk us through this. He pocket vetoes it, the whole bill. This is the omnibus, and this is, the government shuts down. That's going to put pressure on McConnell to bring that up, even though the COVID stuff was a function of Georgia. Right. There's 11 days here, and the Democrats have been so quick on this. She has to call a vote. I mean, this is literally, the Democrats get to play Santa Claus and basically daring Mitch McConnell to be Scrooge or, the Grinch or whomever it is.
There you go.
Well, let me ask you, why can't they do that today? I mean, why can't you just go, they haven't left yet, have they? They're still there.
They could do.
They have to be there to override the veto if for some reason he does it, right? So they're there. Why can't you just go, look, we're going to do this standalone bill. It's just going to sit here. We won't send it over unless we need to. But everybody, we're all on board. Get the vote done and have it there. And just say, Trump, we're with you, we're ready, we're going to have this. If this is how we have to do it, this is how we have to do it. That would put tremendous pressure on McConnell and whoever if they want to go in and amend this thing. Now, I don't know what the process is for amending the bill at this point. Do you? I mean, is it difficult? Could they?
I think the idea would be that, amending the bill would be more difficult because then you'd have to have amendments come out of the House. They'd have to get passed or they'd come to the Senate and they'd have to get passed by both houses and they would go back and forth. In this instance, you could just have a standalone bill and say to Trump, we're giving you this standalone bill, sign off on that one. Maybe he doesn't sign off on the omnibus. You get another bite at the apple there. Yeah. And you get that $2,000. But that's
my fear. That's my fear is that this unanimous consent, she might wipe her hands of it once it's done because they want a bill going into next year and they fear, say, worst case scenario, the Georgia runoffs don't go their way, then they're never going to get another stimulus package with McConnell still holding on to the Senate. And clearly Democratic leadership has signaled that they want something done and they don't care as much about what is in it because Biden is worried about the economic fallout next year. That's what I think
but a standalone bill
towards, though.
The only reason why you wouldn't do a standalone bill at this point, and I don't know why they couldn't bring it. Well, no, but the only reason why you wouldn't do it is because you don't want to come back for Christmas, that you want to allow people to get out the door. And so, the bill has been written already. It might take longer to get the standalone bill, but we're only talking literally, I think, like a day. And that is really what it seems to come down to. There doesn't seem to be any type of procedural hurdles or whatnot. It doesn't interfere with the bill that's already been passed. This is a real, this would be an incredible, an incredible failure if Pelosi just decided 100%. It's too much to ask for lawmakers to stay home.
Well, that's ridiculous. That's the rationale. It's completely absurd. Not to mention the fact that how would this affect the Georgia race? I think it would be hugely positive.
I agree.
Because, especially if Nancy's out there pushing it, Pelosi and Schumer, you've got the Democrats out there going, look, we don't love Donald Trump. But when it comes to doing things for the American people, we're the ones who are going to do it. And you could have Warnock and Ossoff. In fact, Ossoff came out. Warnock probably did too. I just didn't see it, but came out immediately going, yes, I'm for the $2,000. This is something that Democrats can run on.
And this is a clip from Tuesday night, I believe it was, last night. Ossoff doing that very thing on CNN. Let's play this clip.
President Trump is, as ever, erratic and all over the place. But on this point tonight, he's right. $600 is a joke. They should send $2,000 checks to the American people right now because people are hurting. And David Perdue, my opponent, who opposed even the first round of $1,200 checks. Imagine that. Imagine a sitting U.S. senator who was profiting from the pandemic buying medical and vaccine stocks, opposed even the first single round of $1,200 checks, has obstructed direct relief for the last 8 months, and now decided he wanted to cut it down to $600 when people can barely feed their families through no fault of their own. Congress should pass $2,000 checks. They should have done it 2 months ago.
Well, you vote.
I don't know. John Ossoff is not going to be my favorite senator in the Senate. But I don't know how you could do a better job as a candidate than he just did in those 60 seconds.
Oh, he's good at that stuff. I have to give him credit. He's very glib. He's very, he's very, very articulate. And he often sort of is able to, he's very good at sort of wrapping everything up in his message, which is, of course, about Perdue being a corrupt multimillionaire, which of course he is. And he, he did that very skillfully, I thought. And he's right. Look, that is a message everybody knows. Maybe they'll give Donald Trump credit for, he loves me and he's given me $2,000 and I just think that guy's terrific. Well, we'll deal with him down the road, one step at a time. Right now, I think it's pretty clear that everybody understands it. It's the Democrats. For however badly the Democrats have messaged all this, and we talked about this earlier in the week, Sam, about what a waste it was of all those months of the Democrats not taking full advantage of the fact that they had passed the CARES bill, and talking about specifically what it was they were trying to do, and using that to contrast with the fact that the Republicans were stonewalling it all the way. I mean, this was a very useful thing. Even just as a messaging bill, it just wasn't messaged very well, and all people knew was that there's a bunch of money. They didn't know what it was for. They didn't know how it was specifically, aimed at people. And this, though, is very clearly $2,000. Everybody can understand that. It's $2,000 per person, I think, which would be $4,000 for a couple, and then another $2,000 for each kid. As far as $1,000 for a kid, I can't remember. It's a lot of money.
You didn't go into the details of that. What they'd end up doing. Yeah,
right, of course.
But your point is,
but if you did it built on what we'd previously done, it would be something like that.
Exactly. I mean, I imagine. You could get $2,000 for a head of the household, and if there's a couple, it's $4,000. And any dependent child would be $600. It would be good to extend this while you're at it, while you're there, to any dependent adult. Maybe you give $2,000 per, any adult in the household type of situation. But nevertheless, you're right. And it's the HEROES Act. That was the messaging bill that they passed over the summer. And that one was $3.8 trillion. Nobody can really mention what's in it. There's a lot of good stuff in there, but as a messaging bill, it fails because all we remember is 3.8 trillion and the word heroes, as opposed to if they had just you could have had a messaging bill and be like, we're going to give $5,000 per person. Everybody would remember exactly what that is. But this scenario we have now, very similar to the scenario that could have existed prior to the election. It was $1.8 trillion on the table. I believe, I'm not sure, we don't know the details of this, but they must have come up with that number in some fashion. There was certainly checks that were being cut to people larger than 600, could have been 1,200 or 1,400, could have been 2,000. Nancy Pelosi did not take that opportunity prior to the election to do what she can do now, essentially. And it feels like...
She has a second chance to leverage Trump's selfishness and selfish desire in this instance against the Republican Party. She could have done that before the election, but was afraid of the consequences electorally. I find Parton pretty vile, but whatever. Now she has a second chance gifted to her by Trump because of his own selfishness.
And I guess it's just a matter of time. We will get a better notion, I think, within, probably by the end of the day or maybe in the next 48 hours, how it's going to go. They're going to try the unanimous consent first, and then we'll see. And it really, the idea of putting another $380 billion directly into the pockets of people whose combined income is less than $75,000 a year, that's going to have a real positive impact on people's lives. And if you couple that with the $25 billion of rental assistance that's in there, we're going to have another period, possibly if this passes, where poverty is diminished dramatically in the country for at least a period of time.
As it should be. I mean, look, we're in the middle of a crisis that's getting worse. The pandemic is exploding. I mean, I live in California, and we're afraid to leave the house at this point. I mean, it is ridiculous. It is the ICUs are full in Los Angeles County, and we have a lot of hospitals here, and it is full. So you don't have your heart attack now, because if you do, you're going to have it in the lobby of the hospital because they don't have ICU beds available for you. So this is really bad, and it is the economic fallout is horrible here and all over the country. Trump went on and on in that speech that you played about restaurants, right? And so we brought back the 3 martini lunch, which, by the way, was brought up to him in a meeting with Wolfgang Puck, who runs Spago over here and other, high-end restaurants. And he was, it's really hurt us that we don't have the 3 martini lunch. Well, let me tell you, that's not what the problem with the restaurants is. The restaurants are suffering because they can't open at all. Nobody's having martinis, right? I mean, they are unable to serve martinis at lunch because they can't serve lunch. So this is really totally beside the point. And I'm sure that some high-end restaurants are happy to have that, but that's kind of, evading what's really going on in the restaurant industry. For theaters, for bars, for everything are suffering. And this kind of thing, just putting some money in people's pockets, along with all the other things that they did negotiate in the bill, which, the bill came out better than I might have thought it would. I mean, it's clear that the Georgia race had an effect on Republicans. Mitch told them, what did he say? Kelly and Dave are really getting hit hard. We really need to help Kelly and Dave out. It's like, oh, Mitch, your empathy is overwhelming. I feel so warm inside at how much you care. But nonetheless, it ended up being a pretty, a better bill than it might have been. I mean, let's just put it that way. Some of the poison pills, they were managed to pare down, and they got rid of a few of the things that were really, really awful. So it's better than nothing, way too late and much too little, but, it is what it is. But nonetheless, this idea of actually putting more actual cash in people's hands, particularly as, this eviction thing, I don't think people understand that when this eviction moratorium goes away, and they're hoping to extend it for a while, but when it does go away, people are still going to owe that back rent. It's a moratorium. It's not, eliminating your rent for this entire period. So people who have been unable, who've not been working, who've been unable to pay their rent this whole time, they're going to be hit with thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars in back rent. I mean, this is going to be a horrible kind of explosion on a lot of people. So this kind of cash, at least there'll be that, to maybe you can buy some food for the month. You can do that sort of thing and perhaps get through enough so that you can get back to work and negotiate some kind of back rent payment. If I were in that position, I don't know what I'd do. I couldn't come up with $10,000.
There is, in this COVID relief bill, there's $25 billion. I don't know if that's sufficient. I haven't seen the numbers, but there is $25 billion in rental assistance that presumably would be sent to agencies in states and cities. Now, I don't know if that's enough, to be honest with you. It doesn't sound like it is sufficient. So I would imagine, and I'm not sure exactly how that would be distributed, but there is $25 billion there. The moratorium on evictions would go deep into January, so that presumably Biden would have the ability to say to the CDC, we need to, and Biden CDC would extend the moratorium for health reasons. But then you're right, we still have that major problem that people are still going to owe rent. I mean, at one point, we're going to have to either deal with that rent, or you're going to have literally millions of people perhaps facing bankruptcy and homelessness. And so, yeah, huge issue. There's a landlord. Sorry, go ahead.
There's a landlord problem too. Small landlords, people who maybe own an apartment building or renting out some kind of small units or whatever. They're not getting the money that they need to pay their mortgages or whatever the loans that they have on these places. I mean, this thing snowballs. And the idea that this is what's so frustrating about this, is that we sat here all these months knowing this stuff. I mean, this isn't anything new that just cropped up. We knew from last spring that we were facing this. All the epidemiologists, everybody said, look, the winter's going to be terrible. Maybe we'll get a respite in the summer, which we didn't really get because, we can't do anything right in America anymore. So we had a surge in the summer that was kind of unexpected. And then the worst case scenario is unfolding as we speak. And so they had all that time to plan it, and they put through the HEROES Act, which had a lot of, it was a basis for good faith negotiations had they wanted to do that, it just didn't exist. So here we are facing emergency after emergency and the fallout. I just hope everybody is prepared for how, just awful it's going to be when the Biden administration comes in and tries to straighten all this out, because it's a terrible mess, and the mess has been absolutely exacerbated by the lack of action on the part of the U.S. Congress. So, and who knows what's going on in the executive branch, right? I mean, God knows the carnage that Trump is leaving behind there.
Yeah, I mean, we're starting to see. I mean, one of the things that was not fixed in this omnibus bill was a reversal of an executive order that Trump issued, changing. It's the Schedule F executive order, which essentially allows for political appointees to move into civil service positions without having to have the same testing qualifications that you would normally have to get into the civil service. So this is part of his borrowing and embedding, political appointees in our professional bureaucracy, as it were, one that is nonpartisan and exists through presidencies. But all right, listen, so we only have a couple more minutes here. Now, we haven't had much of our year-end look back, look forward.
The big surprise.
Well, but the amazing thing is like, I don't know. I mean, first off, I don't remember a year that I want to forget about as quickly and as determinedly than this year in my lifetime anyways. Certainly not on a national level. I've had a couple of rough years individually, but with that said, looking forward, so much of what's going to happen in the next 2 weeks, it seems to me, is going to determine what the next year looks like in this country. Because if the Democrats, if we can secure this extra $1,400 for Americans, that's going to help. It's not going to solve anything, but it's going to be a big help, at least in the first couple of months of the Biden administration. If the Democrats can take Georgia, which this whole $2,000 thing helps significantly with, if they can take Georgia, they can at least have one crack at a big bill. Never mind, Joe Biden will be able to seat his administration quickly and will be able to start to nominate judges and get them through. I mean, that's going to be a big deal. I mean, this is so much of looking forward is contingent upon the next 10 days, really, in many respects.
Well, I mean, I've been feeling that since, election day, when we realized we had to go to the runoff in Georgia, and it became obvious that the majority in the Senate hinged on those two races. And I am trying very hard not to get my hopes up. I mean, it's Georgia, there's a history of runoffs down there. I mean, that's a weird system that they have. I'm, hopeful, because I think that there's a great grassroots organizing down there. I think there's obviously a lot of interest, and they're the early vote has been as big, I guess, as the presidential. Now we'll see if this week, because of Christmas, whether or not any of that holds up. But it does look as though there is plenty of enthusiasm, and I assume it's on both sides are activated. So this is, it's probably going to be a nail biter. But I've been feeling that way. I mean, it's a big disappointment that we were unable to get the majority in the Senate just clear cut and be able to plan going forward. But as you and I've talked about before, Sam, that's no guarantee either, because when you have a very tight Senate, even when it's not that tight, even when you've got a 60 vote majority, the Senate's an inherently undemocratic institution, and you always have a group in the middle, Democrats from red states and some sort of semi-moderate Republicans like, Mitt Romney or Lisa Murkowski or somebody like that, who really form this. They always do it, and we just saw them do it with this COVID bill. They get together and they call themselves the problem solvers, or the Gang of Eight, or whatever. They give themselves some name, and they end up sort of taking over whatever big legislation you're trying to do and end up watering it down, whether we like it or not. I mean, this is always a problem. And then there's a few divas on both sides who decide to stage a tantrum of some sort, or, gore somebody's ox that they've been wanting to gore for a long time. So I'm just putting that out there, because even if we had won it, it was never going to be easy.
Well,
but it's always better.
I want to take a break, and I want to just return to that, because that's the other element. There was a piece there was a buried in that Washington Post on how this bill came together. The Washington Post piece was Joe Biden basically telling Democrats, don't go too big on this. Let's keep it small enough. You don't have to ask for much more, and actually asking them to back off on some of their demands, which let's take a quick break. We'll talk a little bit about that and this notion of like the so-called centrists who supposedly have no ideology whatsoever, but it turns out that in practice they have an ideology. We'll get to a quick break. We're back. Heather, so we had Mark Warner come out, and I think you saw this. He got on television very quickly and was almost, taking that role. And people should understand what happens here. Like, even if you were to get rid of the filibuster for legislation, all that would do would be to change the cohort of people who would be sort of like pushed off the island as to who gets to be in the middle. There are a group of senators who want to be at the fulcrum of everything. And there's more of them on the Democratic side, because in the Republicans have become far less inclined to stray from what their constituents want, frankly. But you have your Mark Warners. I would imagine we're going to see Mark Kelly do this as well. We're going to see if maybe Ossoff or Warnock, they might be people like that as well. There's a couple others in the Chris Coons, maybe. There's a couple others in the Senate who are always going to do this. They're going to go, and presumably they have no ideology, although it turns out to be a policy set that helps people whose ideology might be that we need to maintain wealth in a certain group of people. Like, give me your sense of where do you think Biden's going to be on this? Because he already did that. He sent the signal to the Democrats, like, just, calm down. Don't ask for too much. We know back in the day, you and I used to talk about this all the time. He did an end run against Harry Reid when the Republicans were up against it. There was a fiscal cliff. This was back in 2010, I think it was. Maybe it was 11. And undermined Harry Reid's attempt to negotiate and get taxes raised on corporations and whatnot. Where do you think? What do we think? What do you think we're going to see?
Well, I think Joe Biden has always overrated his negotiating skills. You go back and look at his history in the Senate, and he's never been as good at that as he thinks he is. And the Senate is a different place than it was when he was a senator anyway, largely because of what you said. The Republicans are, they're in safe, very red states with a rabid constituency that will support them, even if they can shut down the government for 6 months, and their constituents would be fine with that. I mean, that's part of the problem that we have with this polarized situation. This is a very different world than Joe Biden once lived in as a senator, and even as a vice president. I mean, it's gotten exponentially worse over the last 12 years at least. So, I worry about it, to be honest with you. I do think that he is inclined to believe that he has some kind of a magic touch in this way, and that he's going to be able to get on the horn with Mitch and whoever. And this is regardless of whether or not the Democrats have a majority. Having the majority is super important because, as you said, you can get his cabinet officials confirmed, judges, and mostly they can set the agenda. Instead of having Mitch McConnell not allowing any amendments or requiring all these things to get legislation just to the floor, you'd have Democrats, you'd have Chuck Schumer, at least getting it to the floor, which we can't do now. So it's hugely important, and I don't mean to underrate it or say it doesn't matter, because it certainly matters. But in terms of actually getting legislation done, the dynamic that you just described of these people in the middle, the problem solvers or whatever they want to call themselves, they're always in there just kind of going, yeah, and Joe Biden is one of them. So what we have is, I'm not sure how long, the one thing that I feel is that, what's different now. First of all, there's a very active, progressive, activist class that is not going to, like under Obama, it kind of all fell apart because that was kind of more of a cult of personality in many ways. And it didn't really last. It wasn't organized around any kind of ideology or even philosophy. That's not true now. That this exists outside, it has nothing to do with Joe Biden, that's for sure. But there is a recognition of how to leverage power within the institutions. I'm seeing a lot more of that, a lot more of savvy kind of using progressive strength within the two institutions. And it's not, you got Bernie Sanders over there kind of, putting his arm around Josh Hawley on the senator for Missouri with, Josh Hawley is not our friend. I hope everybody knows that. But there was Bernie Sanders making common cause with him over trying to get the, this COVID payment up to $1,200. See, that's the kind of savvy maneuvering that you haven't seen from the progressives in the Congress doing very much of. So I think we're going to see more of that. And there's going to be much more pressure on Biden and much more pressure on those centrists than there used to be. And they're using it wisely. It's not just flailing around saying, let's go, pound on the doors of the Congress and do, there'll be some of that, which can sometimes be useful. But this is actual institutional power being used to push people in ways that, particularly to push these Republicans in ways they really don't want to be pushed. So I'm on the one hand, I'm totally prepared to see a lot more of this Mark Warner stuff where he gets up and goes, yeah, they all sat around for months. The Democrats and the Republicans couldn't get anything done. Then we came in and we sat down and we hashed it out and we got her done, and it's just kind of, oh, shut up. Where were you 6 months ago, Warner? You weren't doing anything. And now you're coming into, sailing in at the end when, time was running out and everybody had to get something done or there were going to be, deaths as a result. So shut up. Yeah. But we're going to see more of that. But by the same token, I think we're also going to see more of the things like Sanders and Hawley. We're going to see things, people in the House, the Progressive Caucus is, I think, becoming a much more effective caucus in there. And that's super important because there's a whole bunch of them. And if they can actually, leverage their power in there, then we're going to see some pressure in the House. And, whether Biden likes it or not, he has to deal with that side of his coalition as well. And there are a lot of them. So,
and I think we can look at
that's basically where
I think we can look at his cabinet picks and we can see somebody who's trying to sort of like placate different parts of the party. And, I think he is inclined to placate the sort of the high dollar folks and the more conservative elements, but there has been at least a recognition. You can see it a little bit in his Secretary of Education. We can see it in his Department of Interior. We can see it a little bit on the Council for Economic Advisors and more. Heather, thank you for your insight this year, and we will rely on it again next year. Folks, if you're watching us on the Choice app or I should say the Peacock app on the Choice channel, you can watch us at 5 p.m. or 10 p.m. We've got best of happening for all next week.
Yeah.
And you can also just search Majority Report on the Peacock app and you can find us at any time. We will be back January 4th with our next live show for Emma and Heather. We'll see you then. And for those of you,
happy holidays.
Well, we'll stick around a little bit more, Heather, because now we're so. I mean, I think like this is about as good of a place you'd want to be for. This is a nice little gift from Donald Trump, and on some level,
he's in the Christmas spirit.
In some level, it's I remember at the beginning of the Trump administration, we were like, what happens if he comes out and gets to the left of the Democrats on infrastructure, let's say, and that was a real possibility and it was really interesting. And I think that Pelosi and Schumer, and it remains to be seen if Pelosi has the vote, but in terms of their political in that moment response, I was very, very pleased. They were on it very quickly. Mm-hmm. And it also shows the value, the enormous value to have AOC and Tlaib's bill right there. You need something written up. Here it is. Or you need the concept of $2,000 out here. Here it is in the Senate with Hawley and Sanders. Like 3 days ago, somebody could have said that's completely futile. Why waste your time? Why, but you got to be ready if the opportunity knocks. It doesn't knock that often.
Boy, isn't that the truth?
Be ready.
Isn't that the truth? And, that follows with campaigning as well. I remember years ago, I was working with a PAC, a progressive PAC. And we noticed that in many races, they didn't bother to put up a candidate. The Democrats would just go, oh, we can't win that. Why are we even bothering? They wouldn't recruit anybody. They wouldn't. And there's always somebody around. I mean, and if you encourage that, you build the party where it needs, places where things change, like in Georgia, for instance, where no one expected that was going to go blue. And now we're looking at maybe it's going blue. I mean, and that's mostly because organizers on the ground, people like Stacey Abrams and other groups down there have been working their hearts out for years to do that and to get that turn some of those districts in the state blue. So it's the same thing. So what would happen is that, I don't know, the Republican who was unbeatable would suddenly be caught in some, child trafficking ring or something and have to break out at the last minute. And the Democrats wouldn't have a candidate in the race. And it's like, you always have to be prepared for something to happen in legislation, in politics, in whatever. Have a plan B here. At least have something at the ready in case you get an opportunity to do it. This is a perfect example. And it shouldn't have been that hard for them to think, and it wasn't this time, but normally it would have been, that you would have this at the ready because Donald Trump is completely, he's out of his mind. He's completely losing it. And who knew what he was going to do? And it was entirely possible that he was going to want to stab Mitch McConnell in the back, which is, again, what I said earlier, that's what this is about.
Right.
What's amazing, though, to me is that, we did all hypothesize potentially could he, be more populist than the left when he came into office or do some of these things. And he's only doing it now, like in 2016, and he renewed some of this talk in 2022 when his electoral butt is on the line. And he's deluded himself into thinking he still has a chance now and then also potentially in 2024 if that's what he decides to do. But he has those instincts to crowd surf and to throw money out like he's in the mob, but he's not smart enough to strategically use them at the right time. And that's to our benefit, right? And it's benefiting the Democrats right now, because he does know things like this are populist and popular, and the $1,200 checks did give him a boost. But he can't fuse the two of them together. If he had done this and made this push over and over again before the election, I bet there was a great chance that he could have won the election. Instead, he did culture war nonsense.
And also, we should also say, that's a very good point, because in the same way that we look at the HEROES Act and say $3.5 trillion and called the HEROES Act, the only thing I can tell you from the $1.8 trillion deal from the White House is that it was $1.8 trillion. If he had come out and said in those negotiations, Mnuchin had come out and said, we want $2,000 and we're going to force the Democrats to give it to us. I mean, Pelosi could have said, well, we're for $3,000. I mean, and so it puts
them in a very uncomfortable position. It puts Pelosi and Schumer, more traditional Democrats, in a very uncomfortable position. It puts someone like Mark Warner, who we've talked about a lot, or Amy Klobuchar in incredibly uncomfortable positions. And it puts Joe Biden in an uncomfortable position. Yep. Like, Biden is going to be in, or I think, or in the Democrats, for a world of hurt in 2022 if they don't match this kind of rhetoric, which they're stepping up to the plate right now. I get it, but Biden's not really anywhere to be found.
We'll see. There's one president at the time, I guess. And, if Biden, there's no way Biden's saying don't do $2,000 at this point. There's no way. I mean,
Amy Klobuchar did. but I don't think Biden's going to do that. I think Biden will say, yeah, I'll go for it, do it. I haven't heard, actually. Have we heard anything from the Biden camp on this? Because I haven't.
I don't think we will. Like, I don't know what the value is of Biden doing that. Like,
no, I agree. I just mean once he is president, he would never consider doing something like this. And I think what Trump's doing right now, I mean, it's also partially nuts, but populism, in the back of his mind, right? That's a problem for Democrats, because the economic recovery from this and the post-vaccine life and the economic hurt and the deep pain, that's going to be critical to Democrats holding into power in 2022 and 2024.
I do love the fact that Klobuchar just didn't get the memo. And when she freelances, her instinct is wrong.
Bad.
I mean,
that is really everybody hit her hard the minute she said it. It was something else.
All right. Well, Heather, I meant when I said earlier, always a pleasure to talk to you, but you're my favorite person to have on at the end of the year. And if I really actually even remember this year, even a slight bit, I would talk more about it. But thanks so much for having me. And we'll see you in 20.
Oh, my pleasure,
Heather.
I'll be here.
Oh, there we go. Before we wrap up the free half and head into the fun half at the end of this year, I didn't want to spend a lot of time looking back on this year. We didn't go through do extra content. We did some best ofs, kept it for the last couple of months because we wanted to keep it stuff that we had video on. And, this has been a horrible year for everybody in many respects, obviously because of the pandemic. But around here, it's been even worse. It is impossible to look back on this year and not, at least in my mind, and I'm sure in most of yours, see it dominated by the loss of Michael Brooks, who, been on this show for 8 years, and the vast majority of the years that the show's been in existence. And so it's been a huge loss. His work is still, you can find it at the Michael Brooks Show on YouTube. And of course, throughout the 10 years on this program, there's Alicia, his sister, and Matt, and the whole TMBS crew are putting together Griscom, the shows, some shows to retrospective shows, tribute shows. I'm going to be doing one with Andy Kindler and David Feldman. We're going to be talking about the comedy that Michael did, and not sure when that's going to happen. We're going to record it over the break, but to the extent, what a crappy year to dedicate to somebody in some respects. But this year obviously dedicated to the memory of Michael Brooks, and he will be missed. Hopefully we can get back into the studio for much of next year. It will be a while before we're all in here. Em and I have the opportunity to come in on occasion and with our big tarp and whatnot, and it's a huge mess in here. But hopefully when we all get back into the studio, we can set things up in such a way that we can have more audio drops, and we can drop in things like Michael's laugh here and there, and keep his spirit alive in the show, at least in terms of voice. I mean, but his ideas and, his reaction to the news of the day. We will, with the ideas we have in the work that he's done in the past, it's up there. But in terms of going forward, it's just a huge void. And it's not easy to deal with on a day-to-day basis, but it's a real loss for the show, for you folks, and in many respects for our politics, particularly on the left. So wanted to say that, and just remind you, you go check out Nomi's show. Not sure who's on today, but you can find it at youtube.com/the Nomi Key Show. And you want to support this program, you can become a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. Support the free show. We give you the fun half just about every day, except for the next week. We've got best ofs happening this week. I may hop on at one point and do like a year-end all phone call show, in which case, get the app and we'll send out a text message that's happening. You can get the app at majorityapp.com, and we'll be doing it on YouTube unless we get, I don't know, we're working on a video system. Just we'll go and we'll do our pitches, but I just want to thank all of our audience, our members, of course, but everyone who participates in the show, calls into the show, IMs the show, listens to the show. I mean, this is we have a great community. Watching it now with folks, sending their condolences to John from San Antonio. Moments like that are very, very gratifying. To just see the care in which people treat each other in this community. So it's much appreciated. Jamie, tell us what's happening on the Antifada.
Wow, that's a tough one to follow. Just gonna go for it. So this week on the Antifada, we have a festive Christmas episode, and it's about anti-Semitism. Specifically anti-Semitism and Holocaust denial on the Marxist left. The boys go over why Marx is not guilty of it on the Jewish question, but how structural anti-Semitism is in fact all over the place, and you better watch out. So that's up now, patreon.com/the Antifada. Also, we're doing a Twitch stream tonight at 7 with some of our friends from Trash Future, which is a very funny podcast in the UK. We're going to be talking about Brexit, COVID relief, how Boris Johnson is dicking everything up. So that'll be pretty fun. That's at twitch.tv/the Antifada. Also, I wanted to let everyone know this is a very cool new project that I'm involved in. It is an eco-socialist video game called The Promised Land. And I'm not much of a gamer, but I'm on the advisory board for it because I do know about socialism and media. And it's a cool game. You should check it out. I tweeted about it. I'm going to put a link in the episode description. It's pretty chill. You walk around, you vibe, you grow plants. It's free, but there are purchases you can make in the app, and then 60% of the money is going to various environmental and mutual aid groups. So check that out.
Is it like a phone app? Like, is it what platform?
I played it on the computer when I did the beta test. I am not the right person to ask these questions.
I am also gamer illiterate too, so I completely empathize.
Is it something like that Milo would be good?
Oh yeah, totally.
Okay.
Totally. It's like, I'd say it's like comparable to Farmville, maybe. I don't know. They've got some cool retro graphics. It's just like, it's not competitive. It's really my speed as video games go.
Interesting. All right. Well, I will. We'll have that link in the show notes. Matt, what's happening over? I don't know, through the next year. Let's say. Why don't you catch us up on what's happening on the Matt Leck audio empire for the next year?
Yes, there'll be a new literary hangover before the end of the year on William Byrd's. He was a planter in 17th century at the start of Virginia, and he kept a diary every single day, and some of them he just confessed like sex crimes and things like that. Really crazy stuff, but also like a very PragerU would like a statue of this guy, for instance. He's that sort of thing. Anyway, also tonight, Left Reckoning, we're doing our shows on Wednesday this week and next week because of the holidays. So we have Ashok Kumar on to talk about India's farmers' protest general strike.
All right. Well, there it is. I don't know.
Wait, can I say one more thing? I forgot.
Sure.
I feel like I'm being greedy today with the plugs, but you know what? I learned it from the best. Michael would have been very proud of me. We are on Majority Report next week, so I'm going to plug this now. We are doing a year in review episode with Mike Davis, the greatest living Marxist historian, as far as I'm concerned. And I'm very excited about that. And that's going to be out a week from today.
Oh, he had a piece. We were going to book him for a piece.
Yeah, answer your emails, Professor Davis.
He always answers mine.
Oh, well, maybe you could help us out. And Brendan, get on that. Jamie, he answers Jamie's emails. All right, folks, we will see you in the fun half if we are saying goodbye to you for 2020. Thanks for tuning in. We will look forward to hearing from you at 2021. Remember, if you pick up the app at majorityapp.com, it's completely free. We will send out a text message if I hop on and do any type of like phone call show or who knows what. So we will check you then. Otherwise, we will see you in the fun half.
And for it.
All right, folks, 646-257-3920. See you in the fun half.
Are you ready?
Who sent us this?
Alpha males are back. Boy, back. And the alpha males are back.
Just as delicious as you can imagine.
The alpha males are back. Boy, back. And the alpha males are back.
Just want to degrade the white man.
Alpha males are back.
I take all of it in my throat.
Alpha males are back.
Almost says what?
The alpha males are back.
You are a madman.
And the alpha males are back.
I am a total cunt.
Can we bring back DJ Dannerky's song, please?
Yeah, or a couple of them. Just put them in rotation.
DJ Dannerky.
Well, the problem with those is they're like 45 seconds long, so I don't know if they're enough of a break.
That's fucking nonsense.
Hey, folks, reminder.
I do not have Parkinson's.
And the alpha males are...
Psych. Fuck em.
Almost says what? Almost says what?
Hell of a lot of bank. 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 Hell of a lot of bank.
All lives matter. Have you tried doing an impression on a college campus?
I think that there's no reason why reasonable people across the divide can't all agree with this. Psych.
And the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black African. And the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black.
See Donald Trump out there, doesn't a little part of you think that America deserves to be taken over by jihadists? Keeping it 100. Can't knock the hustle. Come on! Fuck things I do for the bigger game plan. By the way, it's my birthday! Happy birthday to me, Jew boy!
I have a thought experiment for you.
And the alpha males are back. Africans are black. Alpha males are back. Africans are black.
Come on! Come on! Someone needs to pay the price for blasphemy around here.
I am a total pussy.
Unmuted. It is the fun half, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go to the IMs. Jonathan Armstead. Thanks for 2020, Sam. I began listening to the show in 2016 after complaining to Uchi Wally about Jimmy Dore's antics on TYT. He sent me some clips of him calling into the show, and I've been listening and IMing to MR ever since. So just remember, for every person who gets turned off from Jimmy, they'll find you and send in jokes about your time being a white dude on an all-black sitcom and auditioning to be Nation of Islam, Obama's replacement. Thank you, Jonathan Armstead. I appreciate that. And thank you. I think you sent me, I feel like you sent me something by email. I don't know if I responded, but I did use it, I think, on the program. I can't remember. I can't remember off the top of my head because I can't remember anything anymore. Calling from a 551 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, Sam. It's A Square.
A Squared. Good to hear from you.
Good to hear from you guys throughout the entire year. Thank you so much. I'm one of those people who's blessed to work from home, but I can't imagine doing this without having MR on my computer every day. Jamie, Matt, Emma, Brandon, thank you so much. We lost so much this year, including Michael. It's always hard to listen to his voice. But thank you so much for keeping his spirit alive and for keeping the show going. You mean so much to so many of us. John from San Antonio, thank you for all of your contributions. Again, we're very sorry for your loss. And we lost so much this year, over 300,000 people. Bernie not winning the damn primary. But I hope that next year is better for all of us, and that we can get through all of this, and that you continue to do all this good work and pushing these Democrats to do something of meaning for the people of this country. Thank you guys so much. I'm not going to say Happy New Year. I'm going to say safe and stay safe and have a good holiday.
Thank you, A Squared. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Thanks for the call. Bye-bye. Penny from New Mexico on the IM. Anything we can do to push Pelosi and Schumer to hold strong on the $2,000? Aside from call them in our reps. Well, first off, you should call your representatives and say, we need a vote. There needs to be a vote on an amendment. Unanimous consent is not going to be enough. Go back, do your job, be Santa Claus. Be Santa Claus. Call them up and tell them that, please be Santa Claus. You have a chance to be Santa Claus and make the Republicans be the Scrooge. And frankly, I think I have retweeted Dayan and Gentelson's suggestions. I think I am of the mind that the more there is a sense that people are aware that the unanimous consent is not the end of this, the more that people are aware that Pelosi can get her caucus and call back the House and say, we're going to vote on this, the more people who are aware of that and project that they're aware of it, right? I mean, that is both the sort of the value and the detriment of Twitter. Right. That the detriment is that things can seem far more all-encompassing than they in fact are. That big dramas can feel like big dramas, but in fact, when you step out of Twitter, you realize they're not big dramas. They're not, even in the context of politics, that's not what people are talking about. That's not what people are thinking. However, the flip side of that is that you can create the sense amongst the media that people are aware and by osmosis, our political leaders, that people are aware of the option and the opportunity in this instance to bring up a standalone bill. The fact of the matter is that maybe 2% of the population is aware of that. And the Democrats, if the Democratic leadership feels like, oh, we can't get away with just saying that one Republican stood in the way of this because there's too much awareness that we could actually take one other measure to push it through. it becomes harder for them. Will it work? I don't know, but that's what I would do. I would call your reps, tell them that that Pelosi can bring up a standalone bill. That you want them to call Pelosi's office. You want your rep to call Pelosi and demand a vote on this. They could be Santa Claus, and then also, you can find in my Twitter timeline, I've retweeted those two people. I would retweet those people so that it just feels like this idea that you can do more than the unanimous consent can get some traction. I think that's really helpful in this regard.
It feels like we're in the end zone, though, right? To use a sports metaphor.
Well, if you're in the end zone, you've scored.
The red zone.
We're in the red.
Okay. See, I thought the end zone was just like when you're really close to scoring after the other team hands you the ball, which seems like that's what happened here.
To use this metaphor,
the other team does not hand you the ball.
Well, that you punt, drive down the field, you're in the red zone. That means past the 20-yard line, you're close to scoring a touchdown. And I guess for the field goal would be like the political skewer, like the unanimous consent failing, and that's you would settle for that. But the real touchdown is getting this $2,000.
This seems like a slam dunk home run. However, there's still a possibility of an air ball, sack or a fumble.
See, I can do sports metaphors too.
Well, you tried.
I'm trying so hard to bond with you.
Yeah, this is my curse. It's not even something I'm proud of. I shouldn't be betting money I make.
Jamie, you got to go to some type of learning annex class to get up on the sports metaphors.
If you want, I'll give you a crash course, and then you'll wish you never asked.
Speaking of sports metaphors, who wants to see a two-part fumble? And that is a fumble and a sort of a slight attempt at a recovery. Here is Amy Klobuchar now the first clip, correct me if I'm wrong, Brendan, clip number 4 is from last night in the 9:00 hour. And then clip number 5 is from this morning.
That's correct.
Here is where we see the brilliant political instincts of Amy Klobuchar.
She didn't get the memo that Pelosi was actually going to
wait a second.
try to fight on this one.
So Trump comes out at 8 p.m. last night, right? 7 p.m. says, I want $2,000. I'm going to veto this thing if we don't get $2,000 and we don't get an extension on the business tax lunch deduction. And so here's Klobuchar's response.
And now he's saying that he's going to veto it. There is some nuance to it with him saying that he wants a larger size payment to the American people, which is something that Democrats argued for at every step of the process. And now House Democrats say, OK, well, if that's what he wants, we'll provide him with that. I wonder just what you make of this very last minute scramble of what we thought was going to proceed here with this relief bill.
I kept thinking tonight, well, these pardons are an attack on our very democracy. This is an attack on every American. People who are struggling to get by right now, out of work, the unemployment is going to basically end the day after Christmas if this doesn't pass. People who are out of work, people who need the help. The vaccine distribution, Rachel, is in this $30 billion. These vaccines are not going to just parachute into a small town in the middle of Minnesota. We need the help for the states to get the vaccines out. And he is literally undermining our entire effort on testing and vaccine distribution. This was a hard-fought negotiation. Of course, you're right. Democrats were pushing for more funds for the individual payments. But in the end, this was a negotiation, and he knows very well we're reaching the end here with the unemployment, with our small businesses can't take it anymore. One Yelp study early in the year showed we were having 800 small businesses close a day, and there's over $300 billion to help small businesses in this bill. It is the second biggest stimulus in the history of America.
We don't need to hear the rest of this jibber jabber. Did anybody pick up on when she said, Democrats want more in this bill, but we had a negotiation. I want this. I want you to just let this sort of just hang in your mouth for a moment and savor that moment. What she's saying is like, look, we wanted more, but we didn't get it, and now is not the time to get that more. Like she is saying,
when they're offering you more, when the president is giving what you're
the process of negotiation is so holy. That even if you're going to give me more, we're not going to take it. I'm going to both tell you how desperate Americans are right now for more relief. But I'm also going to tell you that, well, we agreed that they can't have it. So if somebody's going to give it to me now, I'm not going to take it.
No takes backsies. No, we already agreed on the negotiation. So even if we could get more for you, our sacrosanct process of coming to this agreement is more important than the relief that you're going to get. It is the arrogance that we talk about all the time of these centrist corporate Democrats and Republicans, and she's not a part of that gang, whatever, but it's the same mentality. And Biden has that mentality too.
It's almost worse than that, because I almost don't even think this feels like some type of animatron program. Like it's just like, gotta go in to protect the process mode, because I don't know, because she literally doesn't have any other sort of North Star here. And except for that idea that we did a deal, because then she gets off of a Madhouse show and some staffer calls her and says, we may not have done this the right way because apparently everybody else has gotten the memo.
And you're trending on Twitter instantly where everyone despises what you just said.
And so here...
Yeah. I was going to say, I feel bad for whatever staffer failed to give her that memo, because there is a stapler with their name on it.
Well, the memo came late, and here she is this morning on CNN. Get me booked on the first show on CNN this morning.
What's outrageous to me is I want to see more direct payments, and I'm glad the Speaker of the House is bringing this up tomorrow. But President Trump had his own people in the room where it happens, or on the Zoom where it happens, or on the telephone.
Oh, we lost the sound. What happened to the sound?
Own people in the room where it happens, or on the Zoom where it happens, or on the telephone. They were negotiating, Secretary Mnuchin. And so then suddenly he says, no, I don't like this, I don't like that. Well, what we need to do is he needs to sign this bill. And then, of course, we can do additional payments. But it was his own party that was blocking them. Where was he? Where was he hiding out?
There we go.
Yeah. Well, again, as you've hinted at, I'll let that ride. Keep going. Do it again.
No, I did. I couldn't at that point because I did it through.
Well, yeah, she deserved multiple sound effects in that regard. But this is what happens when your entire ideology and your political identity is wrapped up in just deal making and I get things done. What do you get done? It doesn't matter.
Right.
I get things done. So, like, even if Trump is offering more, and the other element of it is the same inclination that a lot of cable hosts are going to have to reckon with, that no matter what Trump does, it's wrong. It doesn't matter what the merits are. We sell outrage about Donald Trump being terrible, and obviously he is. And a lot of times when he does good things, he just stumbles upon them because he's acting selfishly, like in this instance where he wants to market himself as more populist, be like a mobster, throw out money to the crowd, and then see if he can be popular for 2024. But it doesn't matter. The end result is more positive. So you have to be intellectually consistent and honest. And a lot of people are having a hard time, and they're way too emotional about this in the age of Trump. And we see this. And Klobuchar is combining those two elements with her religious adherence to centrism and deal making regardless of the deal. And that's why she malfunctioned last night and probably was so taken aback by the backlash. She didn't get the party memo that, no, Pelosi's going to actually at least appear to fight on this.
It is amazing to me that she goes on even CNN, even after sort of realizing like, oh wait, I'm not on the right page here. Even after that, like the American public doesn't give a crap about like he was on a Zoom call and Steve Mnuchin didn't say anything and blah blah blah. Like, dude, like where it is honestly like there is a mentality here, and they can afford to do it. I mean, the ideology comes in that they can afford to do it, right? Like they don't feel the urgency, but there's a mentality here. It's like, this is office politics.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't believe we can't.
We don't like that guy Trump.
Well, it's like I went into human resources and I complained because they're holding meetings, and it's like the process we have is set up, and I spent all of last week on a PowerPoint presentation, and then I have to throw it away.
Yeah. And then they decide to do pizza. Everyone enjoys pizza, but I wanted my PowerPoint presentation. They decided to have an office party. Wait, everyone wants that? No, my process is more important.
Dude, yeah. And I am a little bit concerned. Like, they still could fumble the ball, to extend my sports metaphor. But I'm a little concerned that it took until Trump handed them this gift with a silver wrapping on it to actually do the right thing, do the right strategy. And they still could mess it up. Like, I'm not going to hold my breath.
We'll see. I mean, part of it is, I think, again, is this sort of like making it clear that people should call in and make it clear that there is an awareness that they have an option. And that option is come back, spend your Christmas in Washington. Who cares? I understand Christmas is very important to some people, but this is an emergency. And, of all the years that you don't want to, that it's okay to miss Christmas, this would be the one, right?
Well, essential workers have to work on Christmas, and they need this relief bill so that they can survive. And a lot of people who might be working low-wage jobs also need these stimulus checks and all of these other things. So when they do work on Christmas, they can come home and feed their families.
So what is worse than pardoning 4 mercenaries who killed 14 civilians, including 2 children, in Baghdad in 2007? This created a massive international outcry. They were charged with multiple counts of voluntary and attempted manslaughter in 2014. And the first of these mercenaries who started shooting in Iraq in 2007 was convicted of first-degree murder. One of these guys, the first-degree murder, was convicted and sentenced to life. The others, 30 years in prison. At the sentencing hearing, U.S. Attorney's Office said in a statement, quote, "The sheer amount of unnecessary human loss and suffering attributable to the defendant's criminal conduct on 16th September 2007 is staggering. None of the victims were an insurgent or posed any threat to the convoy that they were protecting."
They just mowed them down.
They just mowed them down
with machine guns.
What could be worse? Well, I don't know if it's worse than pardoning them, but if you didn't have the ability to pardon them, what could be worse? Well, going on national TV and praising the fact that they were pardoned. Here is Pete Hegseth, the guy who is like the go-to congratulate the president for pardoning a war criminal guy.
I would note also the Blackwater contractors, and if you look at that story of Raven 23 and how it was misconstrued against those guys, God bless the president for having the courage, which a lot of other presidents wouldn't do, to pardon those men, those veterans who were there defending diplomats, put in an impossible situation.
Mm-hmm.
An impossible situation, right? Like mass shootings of the civilians. They were, I believe, from a bird's eye view, and mowed them down and killed a 9-year-old boy. And I mean, I think Scahill interviewed his father and just said he could hear the pop, 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 and said, why did they do this?
Jesus Christ. And you know how hard it is to get convicted of war crimes in this day and age? Like, war is already unnecessary suffering and death. Like, they went over there specifically to kill people, to do bad stuff. And like this one was so egregious that it actually did get brought to trial. So this guy doesn't have a leg to stand up.
In prison was one of the guys was sentenced to. So that must mean they were pretty bad, didn't have enough remorse. What Trump is signaling now is that these civilians don't matter because of their ethnicity, because of their religion. And also, this is a way to reward Eric Prince and his sister Betsy DeVos because these were Blackwater guys. Once again, the idiotic talking point that Trump is in some way completely divorced from the Republicans of past who were corrupt, in bed with mercenaries and military industrial complex folks. Like, no, he is part and parcel of them. He is of the same ilk. And this is an indicator that you should not try to separate those two, even if he echoes the rhetoric he hears on Tucker Carlson from time to time. It's empty, and they're all a part of the same group. They're all under the same tent.
Yeah, well, but he shared candy with Michelle Obama, right? George W. Bush. So, clearly he's good.
Very sweet.
And Trump said he would end the wars, except never follows through. So it's the same thing. So,
in addition to pardoning those 4 killers, mercenary killers who massacred 14 Iraqi civilians, there was also 11 other people who were pardoned by Donald Trump. One was Duncan Hunter, and the other was Chris Collins. These are both former Republican congressmen. I say former because they were both committed crimes while they were congressmen. Chris Collins, literally, there is video of him on the White House lawn with his phone, calling in to do insider trading from information that he had gotten.
And then didn't Duncan Hunter blame his wife for his corruption?
And Duncan Hunter blamed his wife for his corruption. I imagine now that she's very excited. He's
wow. What a cuck.
Yeah. So Hunter was sentenced for 11 months imprisonment, set to begin in 2020. Chris Collins also pled guilty. Hunter misused campaign funds, tried to blame it on his wife. Who doesn't? And Chris Collins, former Republican, pled guilty to conspiring to commit securities fraud and making false statements to the FBI. He is serving his 26-month sentence, now pardoned. Also pardoned, like I said, those 4 mercenaries who killed 14 unarmed Iraqi civilians at a Baghdad traffic stop. George Papadopoulos, former Trump campaign ad, who pled guilty as part of the investigation into the Russian meddling of the 2016 presidential election. He pled guilty to lying to FBI agents. Alex van der Zwaan, a son-in-law of Russian billionaire German Khan. He was sentenced to 30 days in prison, fined $20,000 for lying to U.S. Special Counsel Robert Mueller. Alfonso Costa, a dentist from Pittsburgh who had pled guilty to healthcare fraud related to false billing. Alfred Lee Crum pled guilty in 1952 to helping a relative illegally distill moonshine in Oklahoma. I got no problem with that one. And Weldon Angelos, who had been sentenced in 2002 to 55 years imprisonment for selling marijuana and carrying a handgun in the course of dealing, was released by a judge ordered after serving 13 years in prison. That seems excessive to me. Philip Lyman, who was a county commissioner in Utah, he was prosecuted for protesting the Bureau of Land Management's closure of the Recapture Canyon to ATV riders. I don't think you should have to go to prison for that, but I would have liked a nice, healthy fine for that guy for not doing his job and not protecting our commons from a couple of people who want to ride ATVs all over it. Sorry, guys. We should
outlaw ATVs and motorcycles. That's
what?
No.
Freedom hater.
I hate motorcycles. If I hear one, I'm driving. Not for
My
me.
sister got into a very bad motorcycle accident, so I'm not exactly pro motorcycle, but here is a.
I'm not actually saying we should.
But to each their own. Wear your helmet. That's the only thing I would say, and drive responsibility. Also, keep your eyes out for motorcycles when you're driving, please, folks.
Yes, seriously. I was dating a guy with a motorcycle, and I enjoyed riding on the back of it very much, and I'm going to miss him.
There you go. Sorry to hear that. Here is Mehdi Hassan. He has Mehdi Hassan has a show on the Peacock app on the Choice Channel,
where we are
nightly, and he had Joe Crowley, former congressman from Queens and North Brooklyn, was on the program. And, you know, when AOC ran against Joe Crowley, it was a major upset. It really, I think, as much as anything, it also sort of was a milestone, I think, where we're seeing a younger generation and a different generation of Democrats come in with not only who are ideologically to the left of establishment Democrats, but also have a different perspective on partisanship. But she basically went after Crowley as a corporate Democrat. And a lot of people think that's unfair. And Joe Crowley took time off of his job as a corporate lobbyist to go and see Mehdi Hassan. And here's how Mehdi Hassan put that to him. Brendan, we still there? Guys? Well, here we go.
One last thing before I let you go. AOC didn't just reject corporate donations when she ran against you. She attacked you quite a lot for being beholden to big corporations, for being an establishment politician. And you, after losing, went straight away and joined one of DC's biggest lobbying firms, Squire Patton Boggs, which represents fossil fuel companies, private healthcare companies. So haven't you just vindicated AOC's main attack line against you?
Well, I think it's important to note that Squire Patton Boggs is one of the most respected law firms in the world, quite frankly. Over 2,000 lawyers in 46 offices in 20 countries around the world, and do a lot of great work and good things. I'm not a registered lobbyist.
Pause it 1 second. I didn't realize it was in 46. What were those numbers again now? Okay, the question is...
46 countries or states? What do you say?
You went to go work for a corporate lobby firm. Doesn't that prove her point that you have such deep ties to corporations? We have many offices. For our so I think that answers that question. All right, go back. Let's play again, because I got to write down these numbers, because that's a very good argument. That they have so many offices. How could they possibly be corporate lobbyists?
Boggs is one of the most respected law firms in the world, quite frankly. Over 2,000 lawyers in 46 offices in 20 countries around the world, and do a lot of great work and good things. I'm not a registered lobbyist at this point. I continue to do consulting work. Everyone is entitled to have a lawyer and a law firm. Sometimes they have clients that are more Disneyland than necessarily tobacco, for instance. So I think that's not only Squire Patton Boggs, but every law firm. So I have enjoyed a lot of the work that I've been able to be engaged in, very much so. And I think Squire Patton Boggs is one of the more reputable law firms in the country.
Oh, I'm sure you have enjoyed your work.
I'm not questioning their reputation. I'm just wondering, do you accept the perception that a lot of people will look and see politicians going straight from Capitol Hill to K Street is what helped Donald Trump talk about the swamp and all of that?
Well, I don't really see what that issue has to do with gainful employment after leaving Congress. The reality is that I have a lot to offer in terms of my knowledge, my experience in life in government, both in the state legislature, the state of New York, as well as in Congress, 20 years in the House of Representatives. And so putting that to use, and I think in very positive use, is something that I'm very, very proud of and very happy to be engaged in.
Yeah, very positive use for his own pocketbook. I love it. It's like his experience, but really it's his relationships with current Democrats that he can...
That's why they hire people like him.
Right. But it's very hard to understand something when your financial well-being or wealth depends on not understanding it. I butchered that, but you know what
Upton Sinclair.
Yeah. I mean, this is that's also one of the reasons why I really like Mehdi. I mean, that is,
Oh, yeah.
It would never occur to me to ever
He
want to talk to Crowley at all about anything, with all due respect. Oh yes, and it was also very much like that that thing we talked about with Perrine last week about, this. The fact is that everyone deserves a lawyer. That concept is like, no, that's not true. And for criminal proceedings, yeah, everybody deserves a lawyer.
Every human being.
Right. Yeah. Every human being deserves a lawyer. Indeed. And I don't know. I guess if there's corporate criminal liability, you're going to be defending a human being. But the idea that every corporation deserves a lobbyist who also happens to be a lawyer is not a concept. I mean, if you want to talk about
it's not in the Miranda rights.
Every person deserves a doctor or a healthcare professional who will provide for them. But no, the fact of the matter is this whole thing about everybody deserves a lawyer. No. That's no. You buy a lawyer.
No,
if you're a corporation and they go out there and they negotiate, they're out there trying to.
Well, Alex was talking about this, right? It's this cognitive dissonance that Democrats, but centrist corporate Democrats who are a part of this lawyer class have to tell themselves in order to continue supporting the Democratic Party, supporting the social ideals that they say they espouse, while also, say, representing ExxonMobil or something like that. Like, ExxonMobil is not by its own inherent divine right entitled to a lawyer, but that is the talk that a lot of people in this area, and Crowley's now just like basically an unregistered lobbyist consultant, same kind of deal. That's what they tell themselves in order to justify working within an inherently corrupt system.
Literally like saying like every corporation, everybody deserves representation from a public relations.
It's a right.
Sir, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to a corporate lobbyist with years of experience in relationships in Congress, like
a publicist and a crisis management advisor.
There were literally foreign policy liberals I followed on Twitter that were surprised Elliot Abrams getting he continued to have a career influence.
Waking up, dude.
I think Matt's doing this on purpose to get out early before the break.
What an unbelievable, like, lame way to finish out 2020. Just like, you're just literally like that. But there's Joe Crowley. Folks, check out Medi's show. I quite like that.
Yeah, well, my one point on him, though, is like why are people agreeing to this now that I want him to keep getting great guests like this, but the way he eviscerates in a great way the guests that come on, I can't believe John Bolton agreed to be on his show.
Well, I could see Bolton because Bolton's just like, he thinks that Bolton gets on there, and it was right at the beginning of Maddie's thing, and he's like, I'm going to be on, NBC's app, and but the thing is, you've got to also like have for every interview like that with Crowley, you got to interview like 7 other, politicians and just like have like a
discussion.
Yeah. And that's why I don't like doing it. It's just too annoying to me.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, good on whoever does his booking, because like I feel like they're able to massage these problematic people into interviews with him.
Yes.
Yeah, they tricked him real good.
Speaking of problematic people, poor Charlie Kirk is having a rough go of things lately. It's his math failings, his history failings, sociology failings, and he
might need it.
Well, that's why he's still in college at the age of 47 or whatever.
And here he is at TPUSA talking about how people have been very mean to him on Twitter, and he's left Twitter, except for he hasn't left Twitter.
I deleted Twitter for this exact reason, because there's these people I know. I'll never forget it. I'm texting with one of my friends, and then all of a sudden I get a tweet that he quote tweets saying I tweeted something stupid. I said, I was just texting with you. Why are you all of a sudden telling the world I tweeted something stupid? And he's like, well, it was really dumb. I said, it might have been dumb. I said, but you were just texting me. It's like, you need to tell the world first, go get your BTFO, right? Go get the retweets for it. If you have a problem with it, just tell your friend. Maybe you should delete that. Don't all of a sudden have to get on this public humiliation train that benefits no one.
Okay, what is BTFO?
What does BTFO mean?
Blow the F out thing.
Oh.
I'm Googling it.
Owning.
Here he is complaining that his own friend, that he had tweeted something so stupid that it compelled his own friend to tweet out that your tweet was stupid. And then he's saying, like, why'd you stab me in the back, dude?
Yeah, that's the same thing as persecution.
I wish we could find out who that friend was.
His Twitter is deleted.
His Twitter is deleted or not?
It's not, no.
Well, that's probably why he's meant, like, I deleted when by saying I deleted Twitter, I meant I deleted a tweet.
Right. But he doesn't know the difference between those two things because, once again, he is in need of a tutor. He's failing at English class now on top of his history courses and his math courses. It's really quite sad.
No, he's living that dream that we've all had where you have to go back to college when you're like 40 because you didn't pass your classes. That's literally his life.
That's what I'm saying. This is an elaborate Turning Points USA 21 Jump Street scene where, instead of trying to find the drug ring, he's trying to find the liberals and is posing as a 21-year-old who just, wants to join the frat, man.
Hello.
And he might just lose his virginity along the way.
Calling from a 575 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Yes.
It's been a long time. Where? From where?
The swamp.
Thank you for the call. Appreciate it. And we can't wait to hear from you in 2021. Calling from a 774 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Sam. This is Carl with a K from Worcester.
Carl from Worcester. What's on your mind?
How you doing?
I'm doing good.
Well, so I've been a long time listener. I gotta say, it means a lot to finally be able to talk to you. You really helped with my 2020, by the way. I got some terrible news, like family health-wise. Like my dad was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer.
Oh gosh,
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah. So I'm sorry. I feel like a lot of calls today have been downers. I'm sorry about that.
No, don't apologize.
But yeah, no. So you guys really helped with my 2020. So I just want to thank you guys for that. I also had a quick question. I guess it's not, but if you don't mind.
No, please.
So I guess I was just like, so like your elected liberals, like Klob, is a perfect example of this. Like it just makes me want to bash my head through a wall. Right? They're just so disconnected from
Klobuchar, you mean?
Yeah, I mean the Klob.
The Klob, sorry.
Sorry.
But Sam just looked confused. So
yeah, I didn't get what you're saying with the Klob.
Sam's not online.
Right.
So we need to get like these types of people out of office, but like the only solution is like quote unquote socialist or like quote unquote communist. So like how do we start cutting through like 60 years of intensive communist propaganda, and like so we can actually start presenting like real solutions to the American people, and it means like getting people like this out of office. Does that make sense? Do you get what I'm asking?
You're saying how do you cut through 50 years of anti-communist propaganda to get rid of centrists and replace them just with people who are willing to actually like even return to like FDR Democrat ideology.
Like JFK Democrat. It's like
I mean,
even
the
there.
open window. Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, we're just so far. Like, we need to start like pushing back, and I just feel like the current structure of the Democrats just don't allow for this. We need an outside force to push them that way. You know what I mean?
Well, you know what the outside force I think is going to be. Honestly, is going to be time. Like in 5 years, there's going to be a massive turnover in the if you look at it, just like, how many of Democrats are in their late 70s, early 80s in the leadership of the Democratic Party. Like it's every member of the leadership in the House, except for I think Hakeem Jeffries, is like in their mid to late 70s.
And Steny Hoyer might be the worst of them.
And like, I like people in their mid to late 70s. I like people in their early 80s. In fact, two of them are my parents. But it's not like, that's not the time for that. Like my folks don't necessarily have, finger on the pulse of what's going on. And, you look at like what's happened with Feinstein, and you look at like Leahy, and you look at Pelosi and Hoyer. Even Durbin, these people, time is going to be that force. I think there's value obviously in pushing and organizing. And I think to a large extent, just look at what Bernie did, what AOC did, and Tlaib and even Holly in pushing these $2,000 proposals when it looked like nothing was going to happen, because you just don't know when you're going to get a break. And so organizing, outside organizing, trying to strengthen unions, trying to strengthen all sorts of mutual aid, just organizing. And then you just don't know when the moment is going to happen where that strength is going to be able to be deployed. You just don't know. So
I agree with all those things. Also, I would like to cite an encouraging poll from Gallup News from 2018 that I've just pulled up, showing 47% of people who identify as Democrats view capitalism positively, which is down from 56% in 2016, compared to 57% of Democrats now view socialism positively, which has not changed that much since 2010. And if you look at the way the age is distributed, young people by far prefer socialism to capitalism. So I feel like the decades of anti-communist propaganda have kind of gone away. It doesn't really work on the young people. There's no Soviet Union around to scare people with, So these attitudes do change. And I think it's the job, based on material conditions, right? Because young people are super screwed. And it's the job of the organized left to not only do the ideological work of explaining, what socialism actually is, what capitalism actually is, but, like Sam was saying, do organizing in the workplaces, in the streets, and tie all of these movements together into something that can exert actual power on the system.
Appreciate the call. Dude, when does the Wosox start playing? I won't call them Wosox.
Oh, man. Have you been to Kelly Square recently?
It's a mess, right? I've driven through a little bit.
It's weird. I don't know how to feel about it. I almost wish it was still the same, just because the fear is still there. It just looks a little prettier. You know what I mean? But not really. I don't know. I feel about it.
I haven't seen the field yet. I haven't seen it. I just saw a little bit of the construction, so it's been a while. But
yeah,
I've already bought. I have to say, I've bought all my merch. I've got multiple Worcester Red Sox hats, and I'm pretty psyched about it. So. All right.
How does anyone drive around here? I'm just looking at this Kelly Square for the first time.
Take the call. Check this out. Yeah, no, there's it's all like 14 different rotaries, and it's always if you grow up in Massachusetts and you learn to drive in Massachusetts, you just become incredibly aggressive, because there's no other way of doing this. Here is this is
what?
Kelly Square. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, there you go, dude. You got to wait. Okay. All right. Watch out for coming into the right. And there is the guy. That's Kelly Square. Yeah. Got to take a left. I'm going to take a left. Oh, all right. There you go.
Okay. I'm sorry. I just have this quick question. So the standalone. Okay.
Let's read this letter.
Yeah.
This is a letter. Can we pop this letter up? Can you guys pop this letter up? This is a letter from Nancy Pelosi. Dear Democratic colleague, just when you think you have seen it all, last night, the president said he would possibly veto the bicameral agreement negotiated between Republicans and Democrats. He said he would do so unless the economic impact payments were increased to $2,000. Now, I love this, because that's not the only thing he said, but she is taking what he gave and redefining it. It's a good move. In the bipartisan negotiations, Leader Schumer and I repeatedly asked Republicans what would be the highest number the president would accept for direct payments, and they responded with sphinx-like silence. Negotiations, they would never go above 600. In some cases, proposed 500. They were lying about what the president wanted. Yesterday, I said Democrats would go to the floor and ask for unanimous consent to bring up a standalone bill to increase the payments. To do so requires the agreement of the Republican leader. The agreement is necessary in the House and in the Senate. If the president truly wants to join us in 2000, he should call upon Leader McCarthy to agree to our unanimous consent request. We are scheduled to go in for a pro forma session tomorrow at 10 a.m. We're awaiting word from Leader Hoyer as to whether Leader McCarthy will agree or reject our unanimous consent request. The entire country knows that it's urgent for the president to sign this bill, both to provide the coronavirus relief and keep our government open. So a pro forma session, my understanding is they go there. You don't need full attendance. It is there just to maintain that you're in session.
Yeah.
And you could do a unanimous consent thing, and someone would actually actively have to say no. Not, they say we motioned on the floor, unanimous consent. Somebody else says seconded. All in favor, say aye. Is there anybody? And if nobody says no, then it passes. She knows it's not going to pass.
That's not going to happen.
She knows it's not going to pass. There's going to be some dude, I don't know who it is, some Republican who is like,
Rand Paul.
Well, Rand Paul isn't in the Senate, but it's not
right.
in the Senate that way. They need to bring up that bill, and try and pass it by regular order. And then it becomes an actual vote. But you can't just have a pro forma session. You need to have everybody come back. And
that's not going to happen, though.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, right now, Nancy Pelosi thinks she can get away with it not happening.
I'm saying, I think I'm getting the procedural stuff is confusing, but I'm getting concerned that she thinks the unanimous consent performance is enough.
Oh, you should. That's where your concern should be immediately. You shouldn't even have to get there.
No, I know. But the point is that once this fails, can they recall everybody back? Like,
sure.
Christmas is 2 days away, and I just don't see Pelosi doing that.
Yeah, well, it's very possible she won't, but that's the thing. It becomes a lot harder to do it if she's getting calls from her Congress people or her caucus members, because they're caucus members, because your Congress people are getting calls saying, hey, I know you want to spend Christmas alone without any of your family members because of COVID, and you better be holding to that because you're a congressperson. You got to be setting an example. How about going back to Washington and making sure that we get $2,000 per person? Let's go to the phones. Calling from a 469 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
This is Eddie from Dallas.
Eddie from Dallas?
Yes, sir.
Eddie from Dallas. What's on your mind, Eddie?
Man, I just need about maybe a minute, 20 seconds. I know everybody always talks about an idea going forward for the left. Just throwing out ideas. Why don't left as a YouTube ever make some kind of that T-series that was going on with India? That way you guys can collectively push an idea, because I don't think expecting politicians to change or expecting people to change, there needs to be another catalyst. This election cycle, there were so many people on the last day still hadn't made up their mind as to who they were going to vote. And if you look at just population trends from the 2016 election to this 2020, the people were there. They were just very divisive amongst themselves. And I think if the left really got together, did some kind of, sounds stupid, some kind of Democratic convention as far as what they want to unify around, maybe have a meeting on an annual basis in which you guys all collectively do a T-series.
Do a what series? A T-series?
T-series. Yes. T-series was something that India did. And it was a collective of a bunch of artists. They were having a big subscriber race with them some while back with that Felix YouTuber. and they were racing to 100 million subscribers. I was just suggesting copying that model, but for left-wing YouTube.
I'll look into it. I'm not sure I follow, to be honest with you. I just don't know what that means, T-Series.
Okay, so the T-Series, what India did was there's a bunch of different artists. They have their own channel. They have their own music and own content. They all are part of this. It's almost like a record deal, but it's this overarching YouTube thing in which all these artists joined up, and the T-Series itself has a ton of subscribers, close to 1 million. But the way they got it was by each individual YouTube guy bringing their audience and their crowd to the table. The only reason I'm suggesting that is, as great as you are, you don't have the same reach as, say, like a Jimmy Dore does, or say Tim Black.
Oh, you lost him.
That's not true.
I mean, we actually, I don't know that we don't have the same reach.
They just have more vocal fans.
So it's like a network kind of that kind of pushes like a mass line, which, you know what? I am somewhat sympathetic to this idea, but good luck getting all of the left-wing YouTubers to agree.
The whole point isn't, it wouldn't be to get them to agree. That's the whole incentive to make this thing work. So it would be just something that you guys can collectively say, hey, we should do this. We should decide on a date. And it would be more of what ideas you guys want to bring. And it should be, I hate to say this, the left as a whole is very useful idiots in the sense that you look at Dave Rubin, you look at Steven Crowder, and even though they don't share the same talking points, their message is always the same. So they always fight for the same ideas, whereas the left, we're all divisive. But if we could amend something and say, like, hey, as a left, as a collective, we want to agree on these ideas. We might not agree on the details, but we should go this way. And the only reason I think that should be the first starting point now that Trump's been defeated is because the media itself, the way it exists, is not going to push a left-wing agenda. We need something to rival that.
Yeah.
And given the space that you guys exist in, that's probably a better message or a better way to go about it.
Well,
creating a media infrastructure.
I appreciate
politician.
I appreciate the sentiment. I do think that the challenge, and thank you for the call. You know, there have been attempts in the past to do stuff like this. I mean, but spend 5 minutes in the in people's Twitter feeds or YouTube comments, and like the left, it seems to me, is just like there's a lot of a thin shaving, I would say, right? Like, I mean, the differences that you can find on the left of just like within the context of any given sort of like community is pretty stunning, it seems to me. That's just the way the nature of the left is. It almost rivals like this has been my notice, and particularly it's going to get more heightened too when you don't have sort of like the cohesive force that countering Donald Trump has been. I mean, and I think,
or the force of the Bernie campaign, or if you want to talk about the left,
right? And so there, it ends up being like, going into like a libertarian Reddit forum, and like the 47 different flavors of libertarians, and they're all sort of like on their own island. The left isn't quite that bad, but there is a decent amount of that. I mean, we just saw it with this whole, force the vote thing on some level, right? Like it was just. It is.
Oh my God!
But we're not going to talk.
Spectacle. No, I mean, I am less concerned, I will say, with different left-wing media producers, all of which operate on some continuum between pure grift and pure altruism, right? I'm less concerned about all of them agreeing, especially considering I have wildly different levels of respect for the different ones, depending how involved they are in actual movements. More interested in integrating a message and a platform with some reach into the actual workings of the movement to the degree that such a thing exists. And we've been talking a lot about this at the Antifada, actually. Like, what can we do to get people rooted and to get ourselves rooted in working class organizing. So we're not just like talking out our asses. What can we do to become an organ of the party that, whatever party may or may not be forming? What can we do to help this process along? And I think that's ultimately going to be a lot more important. But like, I don't want to dismiss the basic value that the media has, which is entertainment, making people feel less alone, et cetera, et cetera. But like, we need to go further than that.
Radio, I think, is also, in terms of a medium, I think, if the fact is that radio is so much more ubiquitous than even YouTube, although YouTube is getting there. But
yeah, well, we've got a project. Some of my DSA comrades are on the board now of WBAI, and they're doing some cool stuff there.
But I'm talking radio. Yes, BAI is great, but you need to replicate that in Ohio, in Michigan, and in Wisconsin. You got to in outside of these media markets. That's where it's really got to happen. The major media markets. WBI is great. It is, but it is really the real work. I think the real opportunity lies in these in radio that is throughout the country. The whole point of it is to reach people who you don't normally.
Phil Hendry really influenced my politics because he was aired in North Dakota.
That's funny though, because Phil Hendry after 9/11 got very reactionary.
Oh, I don't remember this. I was, a high schooler.
He swung back, but God, Phil Hendry was prior to 9/11. That show is just unbelievable. Did you guys ever? Did you know that? Jamie, did you ever hear Phil Hendry? Phil Hendry do a radio show. It was a national show, but I think he did it out of LA, and he would do voices, but the audience would not know that he was doing the other characters.
Wow.
And he would do these characters who would call in and just like say the most outrageous and insane things, and then take phone calls where people are arguing with both Phil and the caller, the guest, who was actually Phil too. And so like half the audience, I don't know how it would break down, but half the audience knew that it was just Phil putting a fake character on, and the other half of the audience would just call in and have no idea. And It was amazing. Like people, like he would have guests on, like, oh well, yeah, no, we put every year we hold a celebration where we put a young white girl down a well, and this is the way that we get attention for our town in Pennsylvania. And somebody would call in like, I can't believe that you're actually doing that. Well, sir, it does help the town. And it was just go back and listen to those Phil Hendry tips. They're unbelievable. HR Data Monkey. Hi, Sam. I just signed up for a membership. Started watching YouTube in May 2019. I'll give you one of these. Charge. I work in HR as a contractor and get to understand both the worlds of employment and freelance economy. Hopefully we end up with a higher floor of benefits, since right now I make a really good wage, but I don't get paid holidays or PTO. Health insurance comes through the marketplace, nicknamed Sam Seder Plate. Nomiki Chomsky, Emma Vig Newton, Matt, the ambiguous sports fan, Jamie Maynard Keenan. Barut Milky Way. I spent 4 years in Massachusetts, by far and away the worst designed roads and most aggressive drivers in the country. Indeed. Rabbit from Boston. My humble opinion, Connecticut drivers are the worst drivers in New England region. I would agree with that, but there's a difference between being hyper-aggressive drivers and bad drivers. Right. Like my experience is, with all due respect, Emma and Brendan, New Jersey drivers.
No, that's not true.
They don't seem to have an awareness of other people on the road. Massachusetts drivers, they know you're there. They don't care.
They just sit in the left lane the whole time when they're on the highway, though.
Dude, we're moving.
No, you're not. You're sitting there. You do that. You know who else does it? Is Texas drivers. Texas drivers are actually the worst, I would say. It's like scary to drive in Texas, actually.
I've been like a lot of places in the country, and I don't think I like bring any awareness to the drivers and or like connected to the state.
South Florida, a little bit weird with the drivers there. Some bad drivers there.
I don't know that I've ever been anywhere actually and thought like, wow, everyone's driving really well, except maybe I will say in LA, they're very docile. Like I was afraid at first to drive on this like many lane freeway. And as soon as I got on it, I was like, oh, I'm like a wolf among sheep. It was great.
Well, they're kind of like herding cattle there, or they're like grazing cattle. Everyone's so used to it that they just
creep along. Calling from a 973 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Great area code.
Damn. Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear
Who's
me?
this? Yes. Who's this?
Oh, this is Rob from New Jersey.
Rob from New Jersey. Well,
May I
how
guess?
apropos.
Northern New Jersey, yes?
No, yes. Yes, Emma.
Can you
Very
give me a
correct.
county?
I can give you Passaic County.
Passaic County.
Nice.
I am a product of Essex County.
Oh, that's too bad. I'm
All right.
sorry. How are you?
I am well. How are you?
I'm good. So, I mean, I don't have a general question. It's just I have, and I'm happy you guys have been touching on the sort of like conspiracy theory side of all the Trump stuff. I have a friend who is very much a leftist. He's very left. He was for Bernie in 2016 and this year. But he's a Q person. And he doesn't believe in any of the sort of more bizarre parts of it, like the cloning, the killing celebrities and cloning them. But he does believe that that there's going to be a military coup and that Trump will take office and that Joe and Kamala will be arrested. And I don't know. I just don't know quite how.
Let me ask you this: is he hoping for that, or does he just think that's like where does he? I'm curious about that. I mean, look, I think if Donald Trump thought that if Donald Trump could pull off a military coup, I think he would. I just don't think the military, frankly, is going to go along with him. I mean, I think Flynn's in there and Powell's in there, and they're in there for a reason, talking to people. But I just think that everybody knows they're lunatics. But does your friend believe that's going to happen, or how much does he want it to happen?
He believes it's going to happen, and he definitely seems like he would prefer that to Joe and Kamala getting in, because he believes that the election genuinely was stolen.
Yeah, I think there is a brand of like people. I don't know anything about your friend. Is he kind of spiritually minded? I mean, I'm saying this as
he used to be. He did grow up in a religious house. He used to be married to a girl who was in a very, even more than his family, religious. So that is a part of it.
Yeah, I mean, I saw actually Marianne Williamson responded on Twitter about this at some point, and this is different than your friend, but there are, I think, a lot of kind of older hippie types. I mean, I have them in my family too, who send me all caps emails about it being a coup and things like that, who are drawn to this, and it's like the Q thing is almost religious.
Oh yeah, we had that conversation where we were talking about that, where it's like the entire structure of it is in the is a religious structure. You have someone you can't see who's controlling things, and is working these machinations, and a lot of this stuff is preordained.
And you get to be a part of a group where you think you have some secret ancient, not ancient, but some secret knowledge that you're only privy to because you were the only person able to connect the dots. And I think, there's a lot of online culture and polarization that feeds into that, and you can find whatever you want in that area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and Q isn't as partisan as people think it is either. It's kind of gone off into space at this point in time. And yeah, you can see the connection between something like the wellness community, where they believe all sorts of crazy shit about vaccines or science or whatever, or, putting jade eggs in your vagina, and it's not kind of just a hop, skip, and a jump towards a conspiracy theory like QAnon.
It's the egg thing that doesn't work.
Don't do it, Sam.
Appreciate the call.
You'll get an infection.
There was just one other point. Can I throw that in?
Sure, quick.
Real quick. From talking to him, it seems like it's very much based in a place where there's hope in it. Because to him, it seems like it's hopeful that someone in the government, someone that has power, is actually working on his behalf. That Trump and these people have a plan that is, in the end, going to be good for the people. And I think it comes from a place of disillusionment, and I think it's just weird and interesting.
Yep.
Thank you for
appreciate the call.
For sure.
It's so frustrating when you see someone like this guy who maybe went for Bernie and could probably come around to a better politics falling for this kind of stuff, because they're on the right track, right? Like, there is a small group of people that controls everything, and this system has been set up for most people to fail. It's just that the answer isn't, lizard people or whatever. The answer is global capitalism.
Yeah, it's like it's skepticism, which is healthy, but taken to like taken then to morph into a religious Q thing.
Well, it's also a lot less nuanced, right? Like, I mean, it's because it's not like there are people who are a cabal that is controlling people. It's people with aligned interests who, they have the power, they have the resources, they have similar interests, and they,
you can group them all together. Like, the vaccine developers, big pharma, they're the same as the Democratic elite or whatever.
I think the pertinent question I would ask is, what media is he getting this from? And then also I'd recommend TrueAnon and try to get him onto the slide back to reality.
That is how you get people back. And he sounds like he'd be perfect for it if he was into Bernie.
Calling from a 650 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Shakad from Campbell, California.
What's your name?
Shakad.
Shakad, nice to meet you. What's on your mind?
I'd like to talk to you about animal rights. I feel like in the past, people got into conversations with you about morals, and I don't necessarily know that that's the most helpful word. I feel like animal agriculture impacts every big issue on the left now. It impacts climate change. 51% of emissions come from animal agriculture. And then it impacts the pandemic. 75% of new diseases are zoonotic, including COVID-19. And I feel like this should just be a bigger issue than it is on the left, frankly. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think my understanding is that livestock and whatnot, in terms of what it contributes to global greenhouse emissions, is closer to like 15-20%, which is not, I think I don't know. I think there should be policies that we have where we stop subsidizing, frankly, like corn and these other things. And it may mean raising the prices of some of these, but it's tricky, because then you're not, sort of providing the same opportunities for people in terms of their food. I mean, are you talking about like from what perspective? Like, we don't talk enough about how much agriculture, livestock agriculture contributes to global warming, or are you saying?
Well, I'm saying that it's a huge issue, that it impacts global warming, and I would urge you to take a look at other studies that suggest that the number is higher than the 15 to 20%. It impacts diseases, and it's a huge, if you don't want to call it a moral issue, I don't know, it's a compassion issue. We have zero compassion for animals in our society. And for farmed animals specifically.
Well, it's funny that you say this, is because honestly, I've been I've never been a vegetarian, and I've been struggling recently as I eat meat and, thinking about cutting back. And I don't really know where to start. So curious if you have any suggestions on places I can look, because I'm trying to be more cognizant of that disconnect, because I do love pets and I love dogs and cats and stuff. But when I think about pigs, that also makes me very sad. So I'm trying to, be more cognizant and connected to what I'm eating, and stop eating eating meat in the way that I do.
Yeah, there are a lot of resources. You can take a look, for example, at Mercy for Animals is a nonprofit that gathers recipes and stuff. But I mean, there are dozens of these nonprofits. And there's also something called Challenge 22, where for 22 days you basically have people mentoring you and kind of giving you ideas for recipes to make and asking you how you're feeling. So if you want to if you want to try it out.
I think ultimately,
you could hit me up for tips as well, Emma. I was a vegan for 10 years, and I'm still mostly vegan.
Yeah, I'll
I think it's a good. I think from a health perspective, and whether you believe that it's 50% or 15% or whatever number you feel, I think it's a good idea if you can cut down on your meat consumption. But that's not really what you're getting at. What you're really getting at is you don't think that animals that animals should be eaten. And I think it is. I can understand the perspective that it's a moral idea from a compassionate idea. I have close friends who I know who raise livestock. They don't do it in any type of factory farming, but I have friends upstate. They raise a couple of pigs, and every October they get them in the spring. They raise them. They feed them over the winter, the summer. In the fall, they slaughter the pigs. That is their meat for the winter. I have, I think hunting to me seems, somewhat, it seems gratuitous, but I know people who hunt and they take a deer every year. They kill a deer and then they butcher it themselves, or they have someone butcher it. And that's also part of their food for the winter. And it feeds their family. And these people are also extremely compassionate towards their animals. People who work on farms, they have a different disposition towards this.
This is not how the vast majority of meat is produced, though.
Oh, no,
it comes from.
No, it's the point he's making.
But that's not. But that's my point. Is that it is. It's either immoral to kill animals, or it's not. And if it's moral to kill animals, but you should treat them humanely up until that point, that's a different argument. But I don't think that's what the caller is making.
No, that's not the argument I'm making. But I do think that at least that part could be a unifying principle on the left. I think getting rid of factory farming is something that's necessary if we want to achieve any of our goals, in terms of compassion, but also in terms of the environment and cutting down on zoonotic diseases. I would further say that politically, I think it's just smart, because people who think the way I do tend to be more left-leaning, and even if it's just 1 or 2%, elections in this country are decided by that. I don't think the left should shun those ideas.
Yeah, I don't know that it's a political winner, but I think I don't really. I would need more time to sort of look into that. But I think as a public policy perspective, I think subsidizing corn is very problematic, because it is the one of the biggest drivers of factory farming, and I think the factory farming is problematic in a myriad of ways. I would rather maybe subsidize smaller farming, but
did you know that our boy Bernie and Elizabeth Warren co-sponsored Cory Booker's bill to phase out the largest factory farming by 2020? It's pretty cool, right?
That's good. Appreciate the call.
I have so many thoughts on this as someone who was like a 10th level vegan. I mean, yeah, humans living up next to animals in conditions of rapid industrial development are the source of these modern plagues. That has not always existed. I read a really good piece by Chuang about it. They're like a left-com journal out of China. But I think beyond the consumer choices, which, you know, I'm a hypocrite because I make them. They matter. They matter to me in my own life, but more than consumer choices, it's the side of production that's going to be really important. And if we ever take democratic control over the economy, which is what I believe we need to do in order to solve climate change, we're going to have to decide to ramp down meat production. Like, that's all there is to it. But I also don't want to fetishize this kind of organic back to the earth farming, because we have a lot of people to feed, and we need to be looking to high tech alternatives, meat alternatives, like the food of the future. If we get through this bottleneck and manage not to commit suicide as a human race, it's probably going to look a little more like McDonald's than, you know, pure farm to table stuff, or maybe there can be like some very small producers who are still engaged in doing that, but it would be a lot rarer, a lot more expensive, or, you know, if we abolish money, just a little bit harder to get.
I think too, also, like, listening to people who do this sort of work is really important. I remember Kowalski's first call to the Majority Report was him saying, I raised like cattle over time and things like that. And there's going to be lab grown meat on like a large scale. And we need to figure out what to do with the rest of this land that we have for grazing. So like, I feel like that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah. I mean, I think, personally, for me, I don't eat hamburgers anymore. I've had that, the Impossible Burger, and what's the other one? I the difference to me is not significant. So I don't eat a hamburger anymore because I don't have to. And to get that taste sensation, as it were, I don't know that it's much healthier the way that they make that stuff, to be honest with you. But it's like,
I mean, the fact that like Dunkin' Donuts and McDonald's now have their, whatever Impossible shows
right.
that maybe it's
not right. Well, maybe it's not the healthiest, but it is, I'm like, if that sort of craving, and I've, basically eliminated red meat for the most part. But that is, I think like ultimately it's really got to be about a broader policy, and it really is going to be about like, the answer is not organic farming, and because you're just not going to be able to feed enough people with that type of farming. And that's going to still be boutique, or if you're living in a rural area or something like that. But
there's nothing wrong with using science to make food. I just don't trust these giant capitalist firms to be in charge of it. Like, that's my issue with GMOs. It's not that I think, technology is inherently bad to eat.
I think
let's
I'm
not
going
get
to
into
start
the
by
GMO
just
thing.
Eliminating pork. That'll be hard because I do like, but like I feel like pigs are just they're the cutest ones. So
They're as smart as 3-year-old children.
Right, I know.
They're smarter than dogs, and they're so cute. I'm going to take you to the farm sanctuary, Emma. You won't be able to eat pigs after that.
I don't think you will be taking me to the farm sanctuary because I will decline your invitation. Else.
If you go back and see the the first videos that on the on our YouTube channel is the that's bullshit series that I had, and there was a picture of a bull from that sanctuary.
Aww.
Yeah.
Nice.
Calling from a 224 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hugo, is that you?
Who?
Hugo.
Yeah, it is. Who's this?
This is Mark from Chicago.
Mark from Chicago. You got a crappy phone, man.
I got a crappy phone. That's not cool. Is that better?
No, but go ahead. What's on your mind? Be quick. Be quick.
Quick, Martha.
Just want to call and say hi. You guys are awesome.
All right. Thanks, dude.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thanks. Tell
Go
Bob
clean up your room.
Tell Bob I said hi.
Go. I will. I will tell him. I just did one of the longest Hugo episodes in like 5 years on that show. So that should be out in a year. Call from a 616 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Is it me?
Yeah, it is. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Oh, holy shit. My name is Nick. I'm in Michigan. First of all, I'm a healthcare worker, and it's really crazy to see what's going on inside organizations right now. I won't get into details, though, because I have mouths to feed and stuff like this.
I understand.
I do want to mention the first time I heard Phil Henry was like 15 years ago, and it was on a guitar amp. Someone turned it on, and this show just comes on. And he was a romantic minister, basically like throughout the episode, getting fresher and fresher with the congregation up until the end. And they're having full on like sodomy, like stuff like this. People are calling in pissed off. Had no idea what I was listening to, but I'm glad you mentioned that show because it made me remember that.
There are moments like when I was, I would go out to LA for work and I hate being there. I just loathe it and having to drive and like that kind of radio is like, oh my God, I don't mind being in the car for 7 hours a day or whatever it was. But tell me a little bit more. You don't have to get into specifics, but tell me about your experience in terms of what's going on with healthcare with this COVID thing.
Oh, well, I'm a little nervous, right? I mean, what you see happening on an organizational level is a lot like what you see happening with the government right now. Basically, the bare minimum to maintain the workforce, really paltry efforts, sort of insulting in a way. And again, I don't want to get into details. It makes me nervous.
Okay, I understand.
Talk
sure.
about my job. But I did have something to say about like what this caller. So it's kind of serendipitous that he brought it up about this Kanon problem with his Bernie friend or whatever. And I want to put this out there because I don't have the means to actually accomplish something like this. But I know you have a lot of listeners. But I've been wondering for a while when there's going to be like a realistic Kanon satire. Like we need like a web series or something to like. I mean, you want Donald Trump as a hero, like tracking down like migrant caravans and just like outlandish situations, basically. And I just want to see that. So it's like I'm kind of putting it out to the universe here. I guess.
Dude. The best thing I know even remotely close is Matt Christman has a QAnon challenge, which is like the James Randi challenge. Provide a provable prediction and we'll test it, and nobody can do it with QAnon. So that's a funny thing Christman's doing.
That's good, because I was a little concerned he was going down the rabbit hole there for a second. I'm not going to lie.
You're talking to
Matt,
me?
you sound so much better now.
No, Matt Christman.
Oh.
But yeah, I don't know specifically about what you're talking about.
Appreciate the call.
Yep, thanks.
Calling from a 718 area code. Who's this? Where you calling from? Going late today.
Me?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
This is Dustin. This is Dustin from Washington Heights.
Dustin from Washington Heights. What's on your mind?
So, did you by any chance see the thing about the census and the estimates of the seats that some states are gaining and losing in Congress?
I've seen some of it, but nothing too specific.
So apparently New York is losing 1 to 2.
Right.
Which is really, I mean, not only unfortunate, but I'm born and raised here in New York. I've actually lived in Queens most of my life and went to college outside, but came back, lived in Washington Heights. And, I've seen so much building, I think, and as anyone who's been in New York for the past decade, seen so much upzoning and building, new apartments everywhere. And I find it really astounding that we're losing seats given how much housing that's been built.
Well, but the seats, the loss of seats, I mean, it's statewide. I don't know where they're going to take that seat from. But
right. I guess, yeah, I'm just saying, I guess my point is, like, you'd think that, like, a decade of, growth like that, we would, gain.
But you're not looking at, like, how much population is being lost, upstate.
Right, that's true. Yeah.
I mean, that's what's going on. I mean, I think that's a big part of it. A lot of that's happening upstate. It's not necessarily happening in Manhattan or, the Bronx or Queens or Staten Island or Brooklyn. It's happening upstate. And how they end up sort of distributing those districts is, like a political matter that takes place in Albany. And that's what's going to be tricky about it, because, this is how people gore some oxes, as it were. But I think most of it's coming from upstate. There are rural areas, towns in New York, and part of it is we don't have ubiquitous internet. We should have fiber, frankly, everywhere, but we need better internet connectivity. We need better transportation, trains, frankly, to make places that maybe are a little bit more commuter friendly, but also, it's difficult. You have some small towns, and, like, maybe if there were things like high-speed internet and there was more investment in these areas, you could get maybe some industries to move there. There's like what we've been talking about with, I think ultimately, we're going to see some of this when it comes to, like, if they legalize marijuana in the state, you're going to get more agriculture, and, you're going to get more sort of like indoor agriculture. That's going to help a little bit, but yeah, it's tough. The New York state is, got higher taxes, and theoretically there should be better services. In some places there are, in some places there aren't. That's why, we got to start seeing more, like, in terms of, like, healthcare and whatnot. But and taxes have to be raised on locales and people with more money. That's just what has to happen. Like,
Yeah, I'm a salesman. I'm actually a liquor salesman. And unfortunately, I mostly serve restaurants and bars, so it's not going great right now. But I'm always running around. I'm always using the trains. I'm like the subway, using buses. I will say that, and I'm a huge, I'm all for extending the subway. I think that's, and expanding the subway. I'm actually kind of wonder why you don't see too many politicians talking about that. Just growing up in Queens, there's not as much service as there is in, say, Manhattan.
Yeah, at one point, de Blasio was talking about maybe an above ground line going from Queens down through Brooklyn.
The light rail?
Yeah.
Really?
Early on, there was talk. Mm-hmm. Early on.
It'd be nice. No, but instead we had to build a subway line that only goes on the Upper East Side for rich people.
Well, that's the point, is that there was all of that talk, and then it was funneled to that area. Like, that's where that energy went.
Yeah.
And also the MTA is in dire straits.
I got to let you go,
now.
though. Appreciate the call.
Thanks.
Could talk all day about the MTA. Oh, my goodness.
I mean, they don't, they're not, they say they don't have any money right now, so.
All right, we're going to race through all these calls that are on there right now, or I'm going to try and get to most of them. We're just going to say hi so that we can say hi before the end of 2020. We're going to do 1 minute, 60 seconds. Don't mess with me, people. Calling from a 308 area code. You got 60 seconds. Go.
Hey, Sam, it's Kowalski.
Kowalski. Go
Hey
ahead.
guys, no question or anything today. Just wanted to thank you guys for the year. I mean, we all saw the stress and everything you guys went through running the show remotely. It was very nice of you guys to, do that. You were like just a lighthouse on the distance and, a rough, stormy patch of ocean, just keeping all of the ships, with a little bit of hope. Because, you guys are the light in the distance that we all travel to. But, in all seriousness, I'm very sorry for you guys' losses this year. And you definitely, I think, helped a lot of people keep their sanity, being one of the only things that was like truly steadfast and somewhat normal. So I think I speak for pretty much your entire audience saying thank you for helping us keep our sanity in these tough times. And with that, may you all have a very happy holidays, and I look forward to listening to your show next year.
Thanks, Quality. Happy New Year and Merry Christmas if that's what you celebrate.
Thanks so much.
That dude had a timer on. Good for him.
Was that exactly a minute?
Yes. Calling from a 301 area code. Who's this? Where you calling from? You got to be quick.
Hey, Sam, it's Andrew from DC. How you guys doing?
Andrew from DC. Go.
Hey, I wanted to give you a quick update on the story you did last week on the UFC fighters and their independent contractor-ness.
Okay.
Real quick thing that you guys missed that I thought was absurd was that in the UFC, prior to 2014, all the fighters had their own sponsorships. So they could get any brand they want, and they look like NASCARs, basically, with all their patches and stuff on their shorts.
Mm-hmm.
In 2014, UFC signed a deal with Reebok and basically told all of them you can only wear Reebok now. So a lot of them lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue because the league signed an exclusive contract. So the idea that they're independent contractors
and they didn't get much, and they didn't get that profit.
Wow.
They got a little bit, but it was nothing like what they were making from their independent guys. That all the money went to them.
Yeah.
So it was absurd.
Andrew,
whatever.
Great point.
And quick update. The judge gave them class action status, so now it's much more like.
We talked about that, Andrew. We did talk about that. You did good up until that moment, and you went over. Appreciate it, man. See you in 2021. Thanks for the call. Sorry, that's the way it works, folks.
That's the way.
Calling from a 773 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Sam, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can. Go. Who's this?
All right. Chicago bureaucrat, how you doing? Just want to give you an update. I did some food deliveries this morning as part of a mutual aid group. Really excited to see the work that we're building in the community that I live in. It's a really easy way to get involved, especially in a city. So if that's something that you'd really like to do, December and January are going to be critical months. Get out there, get involved.
Website.
Really rewarding. And website, McKinley Park Mutual Aid in the Chicago southwest side area.
McKinley Park Mutual Aid. Google that, folks.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir. It was great. It was rewarding. Recommend it to everybody. And really quick, I work for the Chicago Public Schools. I really hope that there's going to be aid coming out directly to schools. We're getting some, but it's definitely not going to be enough. What I am reflecting on right now is just how inadequate federal funding is overall, even for K through 12. Yep. It is a public school. Yes, it's free, but it relies overwhelmingly on local tax support, which is
wrong. Yes.
Right now.
Appreciate the call. Have a great 2020.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Yep.
God, I haven't even thought about that.
Calling from a 386 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is B from Queens.
B from Queens.
B.
Go.
I'm just angling to become a regular and maybe just a correspondent. But anyway, as my area code suggests, I'm from Central Florida, one of the red parts. And on a good day, Florida is an alligator on bath salts in a dumpster fire. And now there's COVID, and the alligator's not wearing a mask. So I can't get on a plane and go to Florida and spend my family's last Christmas in my childhood home with them because of the president that they voted for. And I can't get them to draw a logical line between Trump getting elected, dismantling the pandemic response team, and mishandling this pandemic, and me not being able to see them this Christmas. And it's just really frustrating, and I'm at the point where I just don't talk to them, and I'm feeling really hopeless about ever uniting this fragmented country again and reminding them that united we stand and divided we fall. But that's something I'm hoping in 2021 we can figure out, like how to get us all on the same page again, because we all need the same things. Like everyone's suffering. So like, let's get our shit together, y'all.
B, I hereby W a regular. Charge. Appreciate the call. Have a great holiday break. Thanks. And hope springs eternal. Calling from an 847 area code. Who's this? Where you calling from? Go.
Hey, it's Josh from Chicago.
Josh from Chicago. How are you? You go.
I'm doing good. I just wanted to thank you all for putting the show on in 2020. I know it was a really rough year for everyone, and I thought how hard it was for you guys to do it remote, and also with Michael's passing. I miss him, but thanks for continuing to remind us of his legacy. And Sam, Emma, Jamie, Matt, Brendan, thank you so much for everything. Emma, you guys got a hell of a catcher in James McCann too, and that's just want to say as a
wait. I'm sorry. What, Emma?
You got a hell of a catcher in James McCann.
White Sox.
Yeah. I am a very casual Mets fan, so it took me a second, but yes, thank you.
Josh, have a great holiday, man. Happy New Year. Calling from a 281 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Sam, this is Cody from Fort Worth.
Cody from Fort Worth. Go. You got a minute.
Okay. Hey, man, I just wanted to say thanks for all you guys do. The show's great. Emma's awesome. Jamie's great. Matt's awesome. I agree with Brendan. I think the worst drivers in the country probably are from Texas. I think that was a pretty solid point he made. And hope you guys have a great holiday, and looking forward to next year.
All right. Appreciate the call.
2020.
Thanks
so much.
Can I get a shofar for losing 70 pounds since March? Hadn't seen my dick in 10 years, and it turns out it's doing just fine. All right. Well, good for you.
Mazel tov.
Calling from a 608 area code. You got 45 seconds now. We're doing it. Go.
Hi, Sam. This is Tom from Sussex, Wisconsin.
Tom.
I just want to. By the way, the only other sports metaphor he left off the field was the own goal. And then if Mitch McConnell has the capacity to squirm or to sweat, I think so much of that should be applied to him as possible, because I don't know how in the fuck he became president of the United States, where every damn thing in the world has to go through that son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Make him squirm, make him sweat. You guys are great. Have a great holiday and a great new year, and we'll see you then.
Agreed.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks.
Same
Tom.
to you. Calling from a 347 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Jonah from San Francisco.
John?
Jonah.
Your phone is really bad. You get 30 seconds.
All right. It's been a great show this year, and I just want to say the Squad Plus needs to do something for us. We need to see some action from them. It can't just all be behind the scenes. They got to change a vote. If it's not Medicare for all, they have to push for something. They got to give us some hope. So
Well, I mean, the AOC Talib $2,000 2020 bill is sitting right there, and if we get that $2,000 check to Americans, they're going to be a big reason for it.
Yeah, that would be good. I mean, I just been hearing, like, I listen to Kyle Kalinske sometimes, and he talked about them taking the Tea Party model, just being very aggressive and, making life uncomfortable for people.
Well,
do you agree with that?
Kyle's the man, but I have not agreed with his sentiments on this very topic.
Well, I could tell you this. Let me tell you quickly what the difference is. One, there were closer to 25 to 30 members of the Freedom Caucus. They didn't even say who they were because of the way that they operated. There was millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars that were behind the Tea Party, coming from America's, the AFP, and coming from the Koch brothers that we don't have. They are just more powerful. They were in the wilderness for 30 years. The Tea Party is no different than really basically the movement conservatives. That's why they went away so quickly.
And that's why Republicans are fine with embracing them.
They're
Because
the
same person.
People.
And substantive differences.
And it took them decades to get that amount of power and also a huge amount of resources. And I'll just tell you this right now, like, I want the Progressive Caucus to get smaller, more exclusive, and have some standards as to who's in it. But when you're talking about the squad in particular, it's like they're not that big or that strong, and you can use the power at this point. But if you use the power when you're this size, you're going to lose it, and it's going to be a problem. But appreciate the call.
I thought this point from Weigel was worth bringing up too. My skepticism, maybe someone else should read this.
You can read it.
You sound. I said you've your mic.
I'm back. Okay. It says my skepticism comes from watching ours in the Obama years offer stuff that couldn't pass, balanced budget amendment, for instance, to mollify at conservatives. Keep me speaker, and I'll give you a doomed floor vote is a good deal for Pelosi. I agree. They should get something for continuing to support Pelosi. Generally, I don't care about Jeffries. Like, let Jeffries get in there and own this mess. But as far as this vote, I don't think people are real about the urgent, like what it does.
Yeah.
Like I say, I'm all for getting rid of Pelosi. I mean, like if you're gonna do some damage.
Yeah.
Don't go and expend, what power you have. Put yourself behind the 8 ball for a performative vote where we already know what the outcome is going to be, and it's really going to hurt the cause.
And
I think
it might be more poignant
But
in
we're not getting
2022. Just quickly, it might be more poignant in 2022 because Pelosi is ostensibly done as speaker at that point.
Calling from a 916 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? You got 30 seconds. Go.
Hey, can you hear me? Do I sound good?
Yep. 45.
Perfect. Hey, I'm wondering, have you guys tried to get Adam Curtis on? I feel like that would be a pretty productive conversation. Also wondering, where did Max Blumenthal go? Or, what do you think is wrong with him now? Thoughts on Francis Fukuyama? I thought you should bring him on because he became a Bernie supporter. He's changed a lot. It's kind of weird.
Is that right?
And Kelton. You brought Kelton on since the Biden team for economics has been assembled.
Stephanie Kelton?
Cool to hear Kelton.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
a lot of questions.
Appreciate the call. Yeah. Curtis, I think we tried to get a while back. Did we have him on? We did.
Tried, and I feel like we were even planning something, and it never happened for some reason. It fell into the wormhole.
Yeah, that's it. He's a good guest, probably in a couple of months. Kelton, we've had many on many times, but I think she's also a guest that we would want when Biden's in office. I had no idea about Fukuyama. That is nuts.
Oh, yeah. I really respect him for admitting that he was wrong about the end of history. I mean, he obviously, it's hard to ignore all the evidence to the contrary, but still, some people are stubborn.
And wait, who was the other person that he's...
Max Blumenthal.
What happened to him?
I mean, I don't, I don't know. The last conversation I had with Max was one of those Vegas trips. He was there, actually. And, I have respect for Max. I think some of the stuff that he does, I find to be the white helmet stuff. I am very skeptical of what he's presenting. I'm not quite sure. I understand, where it's coming from. I as early as 2011, I was on TV saying that we should not get involved in Syria, and that there can be a problem, and there can be a murderous leader, but that doesn't mean that we necessarily have the solution. And that's been my perspective. I don't know why. I just don't buy the denial about who Assad is. And maybe I'm overstating. I don't, I haven't. So I really don't know. I don't know. It's been a question, that we've had around here for a while, but,
we can oppose U.S. imperialism and wars of empire without having to pretzel ourselves and just standing for people like Assad.
Yeah, it can be a more complex conversation as opposed to I'm with this team.
Call from a 412 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? Go.
I think it's Weston from Pittsburgh.
Okay, if you tell me it is, then I'll believe you.
Then it must be. I wanted to comment regarding the force to vote thing. Apologies if you've already covered this. I think David Sirota is co-opting that hashtag on Twitter to use as a to push for a floor vote for the $2,000 stimulus checks.
I'm all in favor of that.
And also, I don't know if you've mentioned it, but AOC's pushback to Jimmy Dore was that she would like to, her preferred ask for the Pelosi vote, speakership vote, would be elimination of PAYGO. And I feel like that's a much smarter and good thing to get behind.
Absolutely.
Just kidding.
She's a sellout. I appreciate the call. Have a good news.
When I thought that the only thing that they could do,
who gives a fuck, motherfucker?
When I thought the only thing they could do was like show who's the real progressive and who's not with the floor vote, I was like, yeah, they should definitely do that. And now that I know that there are other things they could do that might help a little bit more, I'm like, well, maybe that should be further down the list.
I'm not going to get into it again. All right. Call from area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? Oh, your phone is horrible.
Hold on. Can you hear me now?
No. You on an internet phone?
With really bad reception.
Let me just say this. I wish you the best of New Year's and a very Merry Christmas if that's what you celebrate. And if not, then, just have a begrudgingly fine Christmas. Good day, sir. And apologies. We'll get you in 2021.
Sorry, your phone, we couldn't understand or make out anything.
Calling from a 917 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? We got 1, 2, 3, 4 more calls, and then we're done.
Hi, this is Alex from New York.
Alex from New York, go!
Hi, from this half Jew, I want to say Happy Hanukkah and Merry Christmas. And I also wanted to know what you guys thought about the Lindsey Boylan and Andrew Cuomo nonsense.
I believe her 100%. I have heard that Cuomo is a pretty hard guy to work with in many ways that aren't, I don't know, and I believe her. So it doesn't shock me at all.
Yeah, I'm not, I can't imagine that you would, inhibit your career in that way if you didn't have some basis to do so. But appreciate
he's a vindictive motherfucker.
Yeah,
oh,
he really
yes.
is.
Yes.
He is. He behaves like Trump in many ways.
Calling from a 443 area code. Who's this? Where you calling from?
Hello, this is Jackson calling from Westminster, Maryland. And I just want to say thank you for, I just recently found your YouTube channel. I want to say thank you for everything that you guys have been doing, and keep it up.
Your name's what? Jackson?
Jackson, yes.
How old are you, Jackson?
15.
I love it.
You're awesome.
I love it. What's your favorite movie? What's your favorite movie?
Scott Pilgrim, whatever it's called. I don't know.
All right. Well, and what's your favorite app? What app are you using these days?
Maybe just YouTube.
All right.
YouTube?
Cool,
YouTube's
Jackson.
the best app.
Jackson, I appreciate the call. You call in again in 2021 because we need to have a longer conversation. Okay, dude?
Mm-hmm. All right.
All right. Thanks, Ben. Hang in there.
Yep.
Have a good New Year's. You know what? I know more 15-year-olds than I probably know of like people my age.
Yeah.
I have more
this was when I started getting really into political YouTube too, at like 15. So he'll be radicalized. Yeah. Well,
Do you know how much that just like cuts like a knife?
I didn't mean to.
I don't think they even had YouTube yet when I was 15.
You know when YouTube came out?
I don't know.
When I was 40. Area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, is this me?
Yes, it is.
This is Allison from California.
Allison from California. What's on your mind, Allison?
I'm calling from the desperate end of the spectrum. I've been unemployed since March, and my employer misreported my income by half. So I've only been getting less than $500 a month without the boost. I'm about 2 months from self-evicting because I've been paying my rent all along, but now I'm out of money entirely. So I guess I'm kind of calling to offer my services as Sam's personal blackjack or poker dealer in case you're interested.
I mean, do you come with cash too? Like, I mean, in other words, like, do you have your own bank? I don't understand how that works.
No, I would only be able to do the actual dealing portion. I have no cash.
All right. Well,
no, that's like that movie. Yeah. You could you get the big pot and then she deals the cards for like you and, you know, all your friends.
Yeah.
You can't go to Vegas anymore. It would be just like you're right back there at the Torts conference.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Molly's Game.
Right. Thank you. I hated that movie because it's so Sorkin.
Allison, send an email. You know, sometimes when we get calls like this, there are people out there who, what kind of work do you do?
I'm a casino dealer.
Oh,
there you go.
There you go.
I miss casinos. I got to go to Vegas right before the pandemic hit, and I made money on sports betting and on blackjack. It was amazing. And I left up like.
I won some cash on the Patriots.
That's how you win.
I sent in my thing. I haven't got my ticket back. You don't know anything about that, do you?
No, I don't.
What?
Look into it.
What casino did you work at?
A small card room in California, where it works
illicit?
very differently.
Was it illicit?
No. There's a weird rule in California.
No,
where,
I know. I used to go to the one out in L.A. I went to that one a couple of times.
Okay.
And that is.
I work at a couple on the Central Coast.
Yeah, I got to tell you, that was a little bit depressing.
Tell me about it.
It was a little bit depressing in there. I had a buddy who played Pai Gow, and yeah, that was rough. But
yeah, they're not the most exciting places to work all the time or be in.
Well, send us an email, and if anybody sends in for anything, we will let you know. But hang in there, okay?
You got it.
All right.
Thank you.
Appreciate the call. Calling from a 605 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi. My name is Anurag. I'm calling from South Dakota.
Anurag, what's on your mind?
Yeah. Hi, Sam. I'm a regular viewer of this show. I'm a huge fan. So I would try to not take up too much time. I had a couple of questions. The first question is about, the country is going through a huge amount of economic desperation due to the COVID fallout. So in regards to that, I would like to turn your attention towards an issue on foreign policy for just a minute.
Gotta be quick. Gotta be quick.
Yep. So my first question is about China. So what is the progressive general perspective or attitude towards China? In fact, China has been on a expansionism mode, across the South China Sea, all of those islands, Japan, Indonesia, Philippines, and 17 or 19 different countries have border disputes currently ongoing with China. What is the progressive principle?
Oh boy,
to China.
Good.
I'm really sorry for asking this long-winded question, but I've heard progressives talk critically about countries like Saudi Arabia and Israel about their human rights abuses. So what is the progressives' attitude towards China with regards to how they treat their human rights problem? And my second question is, Sam, this is my second question. It has nothing to do with foreign policy. This is about climate change, and I'll explain this very short, very quickly. It's not even a question. So. It's just something that I want to add to the discussion. So,
but wait, dude, listen to me. I will bring in people on China. I can tell you, what's happening with the Uyghurs is horrible. I think there's a real problem with human rights in China. I appreciate the call, but this is the very worst time to bring up these type of topics right now. Too big, but appreciate it.
We have to go, so that's the problem.
We'll look for you in 2021. Plenty of time.
I just have one more thing to add. Just one more thing.
Hell yeah.
Quick.
in regards to climate change, many on the right, people blame the right wingers. They call them climate science deniers or climate change deniers. But I would like to point out that I think that's a misappropriation. I think I have many right wing friends, and what they basically feel is that they all accept climate change, but their main problem lies in the fact that they don't agree whether human activity alone.
Yes. Okay. All right. Fair enough. Let me address that. When you get to be my age, what you see is the evolution of denialism, whether it's about climate change or whether it's about what happens if gay people marry. And over the years, I can tell you that's where they are now. But if they were conservatives 15 years ago, they would be denying that it's actually happening. And I will tell you right now, in 15 years from now, the denial is going to be more narrowly tailored because they'll have accepted that it is man-made. But I appreciate the phone call. I know what you're saying. And we will get to those other things. All right, 2 more calls. Call from a 408 area code. Who's this? You can ask me the meaning of life because you're not going to get an answer. Go ahead.
London from Paris, yo.
Yo. Okay.
I want to be a regular also, and I just wanted to add some positivity to the negativity parade that's happening here. I got glasses. I got glasses for the first time in 30 years, and I can see.
Let's go.
Excellent. I love it.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Rest in peace, Michael.
Appreciate it. Thank you. And the final call, ladies and gentlemen, for 2020 is coming from a 206 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
One more.
Yeah, no, it's you.
Just one more. Yes, this is Aim for Peace, Brooklyn, in Seattle.
Who is it?
Aim for Peace.
Aim for Peace, Brooklyn, Seattle. What's on your mind? You are the final caller of 2020.
Yes, the best for last. Thank you. My question is, let me just set it up real quick. I know I only have a minute. Let me reclaim my time. I was at Coachella a while back, and I was finishing the Prince show on my way to the Roger Waters show, the one where the famous pig flew away. Amazing. I was looking at the little pamphlet because at those times you can there's different stages. Back when Coachella was cool.
Right, of course.
Yeah. Right. And so anyways, I look in there and all of a sudden it's like, Sean Penn, what the heck's Sean Penn doing here? And we're like, okay. My friend's like, well, let's just check it out. Maybe he's doing something with Pearl Jam. It was that kind of time where he was, doing music with them, blah, blah, blah. So we're like, okay, we show up. And all of a sudden, Sean Penn gets on stage, right? Maybe he's a little drunk. Maybe he's just him. I don't know. He's the last real cowboy that there ever will be and ever was. There is a question for you at the end of this, Sam.
Oh, we got to get there quicker.
Are you sure you don't want to pause and explain what Coachella is? Because I'm not sure if Sam knows.
I do. I vaguely know.
What's that?
All right, just making sure. I was just making sure that Sam knows what Coachella is because he has a history of not knowing about this stuff.
What Coachella is.
You know who Roger Waters is, right?
I do know. Yeah, and Sean Penn. All of those people, I know who they are.
Let me just speed round it through it real quick. All of a sudden he gets on stage and he's like, my generation. If I'm too loud, sorry, I'm just going with it. Left your generation with a sense of there's nothing you can do to make this world a better place. And he looks around. He's like, well, you know what? I'm here to tell you. And it's literally just him standing there on the stage of like a full crowd and Coachella, like, what is he going to do? And he's like, my generation, we left you with this sense of there's nothing you can do to make this world a better place. And I'm here to tell you that we can make this world a better place. And I have biodiesel buses, and we're going to go from here to Coachella, India, where Indio, California is, right? All the way to New Orleans and back. And we're going to do good. And we're going to show the world again that there's nothing to it but to just get your hands dirty and, to volunteer. And on the way, sorry, I'm trying to make it quick. On the way we ran up on a immigration rally. Cleve Jones was there. I met Elizabeth Warren during a and this isn't name dropping. I'm just trying to.
Okay, but we really got to move quicker. Honestly, I'm sorry.
So the question is, did your generation leave our generation with a sense that there's nothing you can do to make this world better? And as a wordsmith, Sam, and knowing that you have a privileged platform of your own, what do you think that you can do to make this world better? And to also
do the show.
Well, that's already being done. Of course. There's always something more though, right?
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate the call. And do I think that we did that? Generation X? I mean, I think he's Gen X, right?
See the Fukuyama discourse we just had. I mean, I feel like that is relevant to this particular question.
Right.
All right.
And
Well,
it's also, he's relevant now because he's actually doing volunteer work that the government isn't doing. He started, I don't have to tell you what he's doing. You know what he's doing.
well, yeah, no, I
I'm saying
appreciate
is
the
that
call.
all
Okay.
it doesn't
Got to
matter
say
who it
goodbye.
is.
Got to say goodbye.
Do it.
That's okay. But,
Godspeed, comrade.
into the generational question right now. But I mean, I think, to a certain extent, I'm doing the thing that I was set out to do. I mean, I think like in my my private life, I try and give to causes to the extent that I can, and I sometimes try and to the extent that I have any time to do any type of volunteer work. I do a little bit of that, but I feel like this is probably, I am fortunate that my job is also something I can feel good about what I'm doing. And when I get to be Sean Penn's advanced age, maybe I'll be a little bit more retired and I'll be going to Coachella and renting a diesel bus.
And we shouldn't be too hard on Gen X, right? Because, yeah, they had a vague critique of like corporate things without like an overarching critique of the capitalist system. That was an outgrowth of the neoliberal era and the end of history stuff that Fukuyama wrote about. And, things might be bad right now, but I would be much more depressed to live in the 90s and think this is all there is,
It's depressing. And we were squeezed. We really were squeezed. I mean, we were overshadowed by the boomers in a big, big way. And there was nothing we could do about it, which is why, and I think, to a certain extent, our generation was the first that felt that sort of downward mobilization that became much more pronounced for millennials. I think we just sort of reacted to, there wasn't really much that there was very little, it seemed to me, to be counterculture. It was on some level like we hadn't quite figured out that, like the culture had been subsumed. That's why I think people thought we were at the end of time in many respects. Everything had sort of flattened. But
and any rebellion was totally commodified, right?
Trump, yes, totally. That's what I mean. There was no counterculture because it was all subsumed into,
spectacle.
The spectacle.
It was the kind of depoliticization. And you know what? I get it. Like, it seemed like that was all there was. There was no point in anything. That was just how it's going to be. But, Occupy Wall Street, I think, like Sean and Matt said on History as a Weapon, they posted cringe so that people could envision a better world. And, we really got our work cut out for us. But at least people are waking up.
The spectacle stuff is why by 2001 I was doing a movie about the Situationists. All right.
Yeah, I was meaning to ask you if you were really into situationism or if you just thought it was something that pretentious assholes like.
No, I read quite a bit of Debord and a lot of the Latristes, and there was a lot of stuff but with all that said, and the Soixante-Huitards and all of it, Jake Sherman is reporting that Trump has vetoed the NDAA.
Whoa,
that is huge, and I'm down for that. I love it. I'm glad. This is sort of like cake and eat it too. I'm glad he's doing this after he lost the election. All right, we're gonna read. I'm gonna do 10 IMs and then we're gonna get out of here. I know you got to go, Brendan. Let's go. Flint. Oh, okay. Lawmakers need to stop getting excited about prospective compromise and find new ways to push austerity on demoralized workforce. I really wish I could be Rand Paul's neighbor for 5 minutes. Ice Team Fur, you don't see the value in the leader of the Democratic Party coming out and leading on an issue? I'm not sure I follow that. Bahab, was Klobuchar freelancing on Maddow? Chuck tweeted that Trump should sign the bill and negotiate $2,000 later. I bet she was. Zephi, I have to say that the path for these survival checks does make me more sympathetic to the force the vote push. At the same time, Eric Levitz did a great job of answering the strategy proponents at length. I was disappointed that Brianna Joy Gray seems to be refusing to respond to Eric's piece, but perhaps it's a sign of the ill-conceived nature of the idea. I have experienced a slight reluctance to engage in in that debate from people on that side, but Sam secretly likes Obama. It really bothers me that Tim Heidecker is a real celebrity and that you're only internet famous. It proves that the meritocracy rewards mediocrity. You're way cooler and funnier. Have a great holiday week. You know what? I wish I could disagree, but Tim Heidecker, boy, that guy. Oof. Vladimir Poopin. Hey, guys, thank you for everything. You've helped my wife get through a double lung transplant. And I hope you've stayed me sane as possibly I can. I hope you have a safe and healthy holiday. You deserve much rest and relaxation. Cheers to a much better 2021. I'm so glad. I hope she's doing well. Trump change. Schumer, Pelosi, don't be Pete Carroll. Give the damn ball to beast mode. Here in Seattle, Sam, I assume you'd like that. Well, thank you.
I got that one.
Disco Stew. It's not sexy, so no one wants to say it, but down ballot losses are almost certainly due to the wholesale stopping of door knocking and in-person campaigning. Leftists should take this to mean that they need to be active in community organizing because it's matter. I think there's something to that. Blamey Klobuchar. I wanted to know your thoughts on how the latest Trump pardons will play with his base. I know he can do nothing wrong. Boom, you've answered it. There you go. He can do nothing wrong. They don't care about that. Craven James. Hey, MR Crew, happy holidays. I finally made the commitment to becoming an annual member a few days ago and before my birthday. You get one of these. Thanks for keeping me positive and away from spiraling into nihilism. Much love to you. Rest in power, Michael Brooks. Left is best indeed. And the final IM of the year, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see who we got here. Wow, there's so many. I want to get to all of them, but it's going to go to Teacher Lauren. The worst drivers in New York are the ones with Florida plates. Matt, Brendan, Jamie, Emma. Great year, guys. Hard year. Thanks so much for all the work that you guys have been doing. Folks, thank you so much for supporting the show and tuning in every day. I hope you have a great holiday. Hope you get some time off to rest. I have a feeling I'm probably going to be jumping on the live stream occasionally. But hang in there. Have a great New Year's, and let's hope for a healthy and happier 2021, and also those $2,000 checks, and maybe Georgia wins. We get a good reconciliation bill, and we will be coming back the day before the runoffs. And hopefully Biden will get the message. He needs to do a little bit more, take some more executive action, get on that immigration stuff a little quicker than they're saying that they want to. I know it's not going to happen, but et cetera, et cetera. That's not too much to ask, right? Nope. All right, folks. Happy New Year. Everybody wave goodbye. Come on, Jamie, wave goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Merry Christmas.
See you guys in 2021.
Bye.
Merry Christmas.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there.